Hello, hello, hello. Hey, how are ya? How are ya, folks? Are you all okay? You're all okay? Okay. So we're going to be going on to X here today. Alrighty. Hope you guys are doing well. We're just getting started here, so just trying to get this all set up. Because it's got to be a good grifter. Is it about the Marian prayers they made up and didn't cite? I don't think I saw that one, actually. I don't think I saw that one. That's funny, though. Um, let's see. Let's do a goal. Let's do a goal. We'll just do that. Gotta make that money. All right. There we go. We started a goal, guys. Gotta make the money. We gotta grift hard. Grift maxing, as they say. Some people will say grift maxing. We're gonna share this because sharing is grift maxing extraordinaire. Just like they'll say, sharing your video is grift maxing, guys. Sharing your video is grift maxing. No, this is about my post actually. Oh, Indiana loser. I think he posted a video of a Orthodox prayer book, but the prayer book literally said intercessor. So they're just stupid. They're just big stupid. No, we're gonna address the absolute crash out that was my post. For the grift! Quantum Cataphract, thank you for the $5, brother. You're always appreciated here, and I love seeing you in the chat, man, and talking to you and stuff like that. We will be doing call-ins, so if you guys want to do call-ins, we will be doing that. Let me set this up real quick, and then I'll get this on the front page. What am I doing? Here. So that's the call-in link. We're going to be doing X space to cover this stuff. So, yes, let's share the screen then. There we go, guys. Share on the stream. No face you guys don't get to see my lovely face today. Unfortunately, that's outside of your control. I am tired as all hell, so I have decided I am not going to show my face today. Also, I have like this really sticky stuff in my hair right now, so my hair is like crazy. Protestants are so stupid. They don't understand that bad translation is one thing. Greek from Church Slavonic. What sense do we mean Mary is our hope, our intercessor, etc.? They don't care. No, they just the context doesn't matter to them. All right, so this is what I said that set off all the Protestants in the universe, guys. These guys were flaming mad. They were pissed. They were very upset. Now, also got to turn on the X space. There we go, guys. All right, awesome. So we got that taken care of, and we're gonna read through this. So I posted this, and let me share the space so that people can see that in the space what we're actually referencing. Many don't understand worship. Yeah, 100% they don't. Protestants are really going to lose it when they find out we believe more than just the Theotokos was sinless. We also believe that St. John the Baptist was sinless as well. St. John the Baptist, pray for us. Now, this is not dogma. I want to make that clear right off the bat. However, it is a tradition of the church. It is something that a lot of the church fathers have talked about and said, and my own clergy have said. We also have Joseph the right. Job the righteous forefather. Job the righteous forefather. He is also viewed in a non-dogmatic sense, meaning you don't need to believe this to be united to the Orthodox Church dogmatically, but it is a theological position that I would say a good amount of our saints and church fathers. Yeah, you can call in on the X space. I'll share it in the copy link. I'll copy the link here. You can call in on the X space. We will do call-ins after the X space ends, but for now, Timothy, we're just gonna do it on X. It just makes it easier because then there's not double crosstalk. So, hello everyone. God bless you. God bless you too, Dennis. So, Saint Saint Job, the righteous forefather or righteous forebearer or whatever. I don't remember the exact title we use. But Job is a saint in our church, and he was viewed as sinless as well. He was called righteous and blameless in the book of Job. I believe Jeremiah is also a tradition that he was born in a state of grace and never sinned. And I think there might be one or two others, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So these people absolutely lost their damn minds on me. I mean, I had 56 comments, a bunch of quote tweets. Of course, I ratioed the hell out of all these dorks. With the likes, we Orthodox, we rally around each other.
We're based. It's true.
So true. Steve Banyan, Orthodox person who's been around for a while, he said, "If they're sinless, then why did Christ need to come?" Is the next logical question to ask, but I expect a meltdown. How do they deal with Saint Elijah who went to heaven? If no one is righteous, no, not one, and Christ is needed to be saved. Exactly. How is Saint Elijah and how is Saint Elisha in heaven? We have two Old Testament prophets that were brought up into heaven and never died.
Usually they claim like he didn't go to heaven, or he died in heaven.
Okay,
Is
but
the
then
weird arguments I've
here's
heard. I
what
don't
are your
agree with it,
thoughts on
but
Amot? Amot is like one of the dumbest people on on the platform. He's one of the dumbest apologists out there. He's absolutely one of the dumbest people out. Like seriously, I've never met a guy who is dumber. The fact that he has a following that he has and he gets the kind of views that he does is a shame on the Christian education in America. It's a shame on the education system as a whole. The fact that that guy has any following when he makes some of the dumbest arguments I've ever heard, that's my thoughts on it. He's literally too dumb to be even considered an apologist. He's just an incredulity fallacy machine. That's all he is.
so you're suggesting it's orthoslop or protoslop? No,
It's Protslop.
don't clip me.
I wish I could call in with personal stuff, but I'm at work. Pray for me. We will pray for you. Absolutely. Everyone, please pray for Monarchia.
I
Um,
think I said something. Sorry, trying to find what I said to you.
Yeah, I think you did say in that. Let's see here. Because Christ is God and defeats death by death. Let me share this. Actually, I forgot to share it, guys. I forgot to share it. We're gonna share. Where is it? Where is it, guys? Oh, Yakub's finest creations. We'll share it in that.
Based.
Okay. So, I don't have I have a lot of group chats I'm in, and I always forget which ones are relevant because everyone in
Obviously me. Don't want anything with me because I'm based.
a
It's
messenger of
true.
slop. So true. Um, John the Baptist was born. Okay, so anyways, he goes on, and yes. So the broader point is that our view, the Orthodox view of sin and the fall, is foundationally different than in the West.
Yes.
And so when they see this, they go, "Well, why did Jesus need to die for us? Because we were bound to death and corruption and the concupiscence and all these other things that were just horrible that kept us separated from God." Christ's incarnation, resurrection, death and resurrection. Got it in the wrong order. Um, all of that was part of the economy of Christ unifying and reestablishing communion with us and defeating death and taking back the keys, right? So when Protestants get mad about that, they just don't understand that our entire view of salvation, the fall, sin, and what it does to us is very different. We don't believe people are born ontologically sinful, that it's just a sin nature that they have. We don't believe in sin nature. And so that is the biggest problem.
Well,
Senior Hypocrite says, I think most people would agree that veneration of saints wasn't as normative prior to the Haring and Haves. However, there was a reason Jews mistook Christ was asking for Elijah. Well, yeah, I think that again, along
and Rachel as well.
the print, yeah, and Rachel, and there's a reason that uh, there's a reason why things, um, in principle are established, but not necessarily reach the fullness of what they're meant to be. So, anyways, people lost their minds, and we're gonna go over what some of these people did. So, right here, September Reigns. And by the way, guys, if you are in X, or if you want to just hop on your X on your phone real quick and tag any of these people, you can take Lizzie's, you can take everyone. This is an open call in. They are welcome to come in and actually debate this issue instead of just pearl clutching. So, what's the point of Jesus Christ being the truly sinless one if people are adding more mortals? What? I don't understand what that means. So, what's the point? I guess they meant something different. What's the point of Jesus Christ being the truly sinless one? He was sinless, right? But that's not really the exhaustive reason that Christ came. Christ came to defeat death. That's the
Yes,
reason.
I've kind of been crashing out about that particular point because people will quote every saint ever, and they'll always take like something out of context. And something I always point out to people is that Saint John Chrysostom talks about it. I was speaking to my mother about this. I'm sorry, I want to bring this up, and it's something that kind of occurred to her, because she's still coming out of Protestantism, but she's leaning heavily into Orthodoxy as time goes on because she's realizing, wait, it answers questions I didn't know that never made sense.
Yeah.
St. John Chrysostom said that it was a trap, right? That Jesus dying was a trap because when the death swallowed the divinity of Christ, that its belly burst and all that were within death could escape, right?
Yeah. He
So
broke
it's like
open the gates of Hades. Yes.
we believe, that it's not just he made you not sinful anymore. There's more to it than even that.
So,
You know,
yeah, 100%. And I
and
think
that's why I
that's,
think Orthodox is cool.
yeah, exactly. But Butch here says Saint John, John the Baptist was born of sin, just as Mary was born of sin. Well, I don't understand. Sin is a privation. How can one be born of sin? That would make God using sin as a means of creation. That would make God the source and origin of sin. That these people don't think before they speak. They don't think before they speak, guys. This is like basic 101 stuff. Like, you cannot make God the author of evil. Period. Because it says elsewhere in Scripture that no evil comes from God. God allows for it.
And God said it is good when he created. Not
Yes,
it is awful and sinful, and I want to punish it and make it suffer.
precisely. He goes on to say, and we'll see here, you cheapen Jesus' birth and his sacrifice by believing this foolishness. Well, it doesn't explain how it's foolish. It's
No.
foolish. Y'all have elevated two humans to the sinless level of Jesus. No, because Jesus is God.
That's all that's all Jesus was sinless, huh? That was his defining characteristic, you think?
Yeah, the defining characteristic of Jesus is that he was God, you dummies. Oh, Lord have
Yeah.
mercy. I
I
just
mean,
like,
look at this response. When you point out veneration and intercession in the Old Testament, they always shift the goalposts, but they were alive, not dead. What do they even think the harrowing of Hades is at this point? They don't think about the harrowing of Hades. They literally do not think about the dead at all.
No.
They don't believe the dead are alive. They think they can't hear prayers, which is weird because Revelation says they can. And that they
Yes.
cry out for vengeance for martyrs. What are you talking about?
Even the stones cry
You're
out.
in a dead state.
It literally says even the stones cry out. All of creation groans for redemption and a savior. That's what it says in the scriptures overtly. So if all of creation, which includes not just humans, but all of creation, all of matter, all of the created order, if it can groan, well, what
Yeah.
are we doing here, right?
I think monarchy of the memory is right. I'm praying that Redeemed Zoomer becomes Orthodox because he's slowly become more based over time, and he's slowly devolving into fury that, frankly, if you go through the motions of Protestantism and you do take it seriously, you inevitably get to his point, and then you have to decide if you want to leave or not. And just we can pray for him,
Well,
right?
guys, so Anthony Swampman brings up, been on Corey Mahler's case last few days. Guy is a
Oh,
nutcase. Well, just to cover him real quick, Corey Mahler has been a nutcase for
nuts.
years. I remember back when Twitter was still owned by, it was before Elon Musk purchased it. And
Jeff Posobiec.
everybody was leaving towards like Gab and other social media networks because everyone was getting nuked. Like all of the popular people were getting just nuked off the platform, and Gab was starting to become very big. I don't even know if Gab is still a thing, by the way. But I was on it and fairly active, and I was invited at one point to write articles for Gab News that were explicitly Christian. And at the time, I was Orthodox. I asked my spiritual father if it was okay if I wrote a couple pieces on that, and they were very well received. I think one of them got like 4 or 5 million reads. And it was about the incarnation. It was about Jesus and the incarnation from the Orthodox perspective. Corey Mahler absolutely on Gab crashed out. He absolutely lost his mind, and he proceeded to go. He went back and forth with me, and after he got completely owned numerous times, and this was catechumen me at the time. Like I think, well, it might have
Yeah,
been just when I was first
based.
baptized. It might have been when I was first baptized, but he um he was absolutely crashing out, and I completely demolished him because he's an idiot. But anyways, he started crashing out about orthodoxy every day for months afterwards. Like months. He was doing exposés, hit pieces. He had just started his podcast and was doing like endless like responses to Eastern Orthodox and constantly seething. And he became more and more radical as time goes on, and now he's saying, "Oh, they're traitors to the West." Well, then you ask him, "Well,
To the
how is
west.
that? How does that make any sense at all? We're Christian." And he says, "Well, that's because you guys are Eastern mysticists." What are you talking about? Everything we believe is what Rome admits that they believed what we believed at one point. So what
Yes.
are you even talking about, dude? Right? So Corey Mahler
That's
is not
rich to hear.
yeah.
No,
Dan, what's
I
up?
want to point out.
It's,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go on,
I thought that
go
was
on.
Dennis. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Dennis, what's up?
Yeah, no, because it's rich to hear him calling Eastern Orthodox mystics when the guy literally said that Hitler was a type of Christ.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
what?
yeah. He's a
What?
dummy. Yes, he's a dummy.
I know. I heard it too. I just want to say two things with Corey Mahler, or two things about Corey Mahler, or one thing, I guess. He's obviously literally called for the death of Orthodox Christians. So is Doug Wilson, right? Make no mistake that Christians have always been persecuted, and and it hasn't changed just because you live in America, right? Because like I posted as soon as you posted, I was like, I've been fighting in wars my whole life, my whole adult life, and been more than willing to die for things I didn't care about. What do you think I would do for Christ?
Yeah.
Do you really think like this threat, your conditions are acceptable, Corey Mahler? If you want to go, then just get it over with because we actually believe in what we preach. You're crazy, dude. Like,
I
I don't really care if you're racist. I don't think it's original sin, right? I think like racism is just one of many things you can do that's bad.
yeah,
But
yeah.
dude, when you
I
put it
don't think it's
over
a
God,
uniquely
you're
evil
nuts.
sin. Yeah, I don't think it's
You're
a uniquely
nuts.
evil sin.
God
But
can't sanctify people who are black. What? are
Yeah.
you talking
Well,
about,
no,
dude?
his position is that they achieve a lesser. They can come to God, but it's like a lesser degree. They're just like kind of like, uh, but that, again, from an Orthodox perspective, it's incoherent.
That's insane.
Your
It's
mental assent has very little to do with your actual holiness. Yes,
right.
there's certain propositions that you probably need to believe, but if let's say that that uh that person that never really ascends past the brain of a 7-year-old, and they live their entire lives as like a 5 to 7-year-old, but they love Jesus and they faithfully attend the services, they have faithfully partake in the body and blood of Christ, they faithfully do all the things that are necessary in their lives to conform themselves to Christ. They're 10 times more holy than I'll ever be.
Yeah. And imagine holding yourself to a higher and saying other people can't be as sanctified as me.
So
Dude,
Anthony Swampman
everyone can
said
be
that
more sanctified than me.
check out the thread I had with him. I will check that out. Why don't you DM me that, man? On X if you can. And
It is
then
pathetic.
I'll pull it up. But yeah, I'll pull it up later, but I want to cover the reason why Protestants are big mad with me.
Yeah.
And again, to recap for those who weren't here before, they're very mad at me because I said we believe that Saint John the Baptist was sinless as well, not just the Theotokos, along with like Holy Forefather Job. I believe Jeremiah is. These are not dogmatic, so I want to make that clear. These are what are considered a wide swath of saints held to, but were never like formalized as dogma. Okay, so this is not something you have to believe. Sinlessness of the Theotokos absolutely is a essentially a dogma of the church.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
when it
and it's
comes to these
important.
other individuals, some saints speculate that they were in fact sinless, that they did not commit sin, and I think the scriptural evidence is fairly strong for Job. It says overtly in Job multiple times that he committed no sin, that he was
Yeah.
blameless
Righteous.
and
Yeah.
righteous
In
in
God's
God's
eyes. Yeah.
eyes. Right? It wasn't that God
I mean,
declared.
Blameless.
Anyways, go ahead.
it,
What's
it
up?
it's not that hard to believe, I think. I mean, it goes as far back as Genesis. I mean, we have Enoch, which was described as a man who walked with God. Likewise, Abel was uh, was described as a man after
Innocent.
God's heart, so to speak. Yeah, exactly. So I wouldn't say it's hard to believe, but
Well,
you
that
know,
brings a
like,
problem, Dennis. That brings a problem in for like a lot of the Calvinist bros that are really upset with me. Because their view, nobody is innocent. We're totally
No.
depraved. So God is lying when he says that.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. Bruce the Bruce is
it is. Yeah.
requesting to speak. But hold on, guys. Just one second. I want to cover this a little bit more because I want to cover this first section here. Um, I said
We got a
so.
hater. Yay. We
You
got a
all,
hater.
y'all have elevated two humans to sinless level of Jesus, is what Butch said. Again, Jesus is God.
Yeah.
So then I responded saying Christ would have incarnated regardless of had Adam and Eve sinned. This is from Saint Athanasius. Saint Athanasius says the plan was always for Christ to incarnate, regardless of whether or not Adam and Eve had fallen in the garden.
Yep.
They were the purpose was always to unify human nature with the divine. So this is just something that people just do, like it completely goes over their head. And then if you just
Yep.
continue, we're just going to quickly continue down. Someone
Hold on,
says
real quick.
here,
Can you?
Romans 5:12. They quoted and they said, "Therefore, just as sin came through the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned." Romans 5:12. I said, Evan, you know, again, this is dramatic language to express that all men do at some point go on to sin. It's
There are.
emphasizing that this is a thing that all people have to deal with. Also, what sense is sin being called here? Because there are different senses in sin, right? There is the passive idea of sin, like ancestral sin, where we have to deal with corruption, death, and all of these things. We all have to deal with death, and that's exactly what this is talking about. It's talking about
Mm-hmm.
death and the fear of death leading to sin. Again, I want to take out the Orthodox Study Bible here, and I just want to make sure, so any Orthodox that have issues with this, ancestral sin, it says here, what are the consequences of the fall? Number 2, we who are of Adam's race are not guilty because of Adam's sin, because of our own sin. However, because mankind fell away from the grace of God through Adam's disobedience, man now has a propensity, a disposition, an inclination towards sin. Because just as death entered the world through sin, now sin enters through the fear of death. Now, I just want to emphasize that that nobody is sinless outside of the grace of God.
No.
They interpret this as, oh, these
Well, there's
people
no
were
good
somehow
outside the grace
sinless
of God.
without the need of Jesus. No, you still need Jesus. You still need God. It's
Well,
God's
do you
grace that they are synergizing their will with. They're
see my
fully
comment?
synergizing it. So, anyways, the panel is open. So if you guys want to just chime in, just go ahead and unmute, and you can ask questions, or you can or just engage with what we're talking about. What's
I was gonna say,
Bruce
if
and Dan, you're more than welcome to hop in.
you check my comment, I
Yeah.
was just gonna start. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I apologize. It's just something I thought was relevant. Was I point out like they don't realize that Jesus has always existed with the Father at all times.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty common issue, and this is the point I bring up repeatedly, is that they don't really see Jesus as something that's real. They see him as ephemeral, or but he told you to be sinless. He told you to do righteous deeds, right? So did Jesus lie to you? Or is it possible for you to live a life that he directs you to live, right?
Quickly, Anthony, you have to send me the very last response that you had with Corey, not the beginning of the thread, because he has me blocked, so I cannot see any of his responses to you, and therefore I can't see any of the back and forth you had with him. So you have to send me the very last thing in Corey Mahler's interaction with you.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in as
go ahead.
As a former Calvinist reform guy who's just recently come out of it. One of the things I find interesting, yeah, it's been wonderful. One of the things that's interesting among like the hermeneutic or the way that they interpret these passages in the Protestant world, you would see. So it's really funny. They kind of flip between what's like brutally literal and then also sort of symbolic or systematic. And so in some places where they would say like, Jesus is the only one without sin, but then they'll also take passages that says a man is righteous or sinless. They have to then sort of read into that and say, well, that doesn't actually mean this sinless piece. It means he was righteous in the eyes of God, but his nature is still in sin. And so they have to do a lot of systematic.
Well,
but it's kind of funny.
Notice how they have to, just to add to what you're saying real quick and then continue. Notice how they also have to say, well, we have to read it in light of the rest of Scripture. But why don't you read the rest of Scripture in light of that? It's always it's always a one-way
hermeneutic
street.
lens?
Yeah, it's a one-way
which lens do you choose? Yeah, exactly. And even if you were to grant them, like let's just like say, okay, fine. There were people that sinned, or there are people that are, let's say, sinless, right? And we would still state that no one is being elevated to Trinitarian status. Okay,
yeah.
So Jesus is, right? So even if you have a problem with the idea that there's people that didn't sin in the world, and somehow that then makes them higher than Christ because they didn't sin like Christ, that never happens. There's no proof of that happening in Orthodox theology.
Yeah.
So you can't therefore infer that Jesus Christ is now somehow on the same level as St. John the Baptist, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
I just want to emphasize, I really, really want to emphasize this. Jesus is God. We cannot die and defeat death.
Yes, exactly. The divinity of Christ is what defeated death.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that's really obvious among this crew, and if you've had any kind of like interaction or like I was really deeply embedded in the Doug Wilson, Joel Webbin world for a long time. They are all at odds. I mean, it's really a mess. I don't know how deeply you've looked into any of these things, but
my reform background was, just so you're aware, R.C. Sproul, John MacArthur.
Yeah, me too. Well, no, J-Mac wasn't reformed, so I actually never liked him. I thought he was a mess.
Yeah, he's kind of Nestorian.
He's a Calvinistic. He would say things like the creeds are useless.
Yeah,
he was also a huge dispensationalist.
He was huge
down here,
dispensationalist. But really I was just saying, like, theologically, he's someone I would listen to a lot. Also, somebody I listened to, John Piper, Paul Washer.
Again, not reformed. None of those guys are reformed. I came from, like, I totally feel you, right? Those guys were like really big in the Young Wrestlers in Reform movement.
Yes, they were
And they're
big in
truly
that.
like
They weren't
Calvinistic,
necessarily
right?
Calvinists, but they
But
held some Calvinist.
they're monergists, right?
Yeah.
So like they have that going for them, but they are, so that whole crew, whether it's Wilson, Webben, Mahler, Durbin, White, they're all at odds with each other.
All of them.
But it's kind of funny because they also all sort of have this strange sort of get it a jail free ecumenical card, because we're talking about Reformed Baptists and then Doug Wilson, who has all the confessions in his denomination. So Dutch Reformed, 1689, Westminster, they're all in his denomination. You can hold all of those in that denomination. And there's no univocal approach there. And all the, like, what I would consider to be like buttoned up Dutch Reformed, which are largely liberal now, and buttoned up Presbyterians don't get into this debate sphere at all. They're like very pietistic. And so the people you have fighting with each other are these like strange ecumenists. They're just ecumenists. And so for them to fight against, let's say, Orthodox Christianity, it doesn't make any sense, because they would also at the same time pay lip service to the idea that there are real Christians in the Orthodox Church.
Might have to just.
And so,
yeah, go ahead, keep on going. I'm trying to find this thing from Anthony because there it is. So
that world is a mess.
Absolute nightmare.
And don't get me wrong. Like, I know Orthodox has, like, people that aren't authorities disagree with each other often in the Orthodox world, but they're not authorities. These people are authorities. I mean, in some sense, they are elders and pastors of congregations. And so they hold like a sort of authority in their world, but because they are so fractured and they can't even define the essentials and agree on them, they then move the bar to sort of like mere conservatism. And the only person that has been sort of pariahed would be Joel Webben and Corey Mahler, because of the Israel stuff, right? That's really the big issue with those guys.
Yeah.
And they even went so far as to make a statement. Like, they signed a couple years ago a statement that effectively denounced anyone that would basically not use the word Judeo-Christian, right? Like,
what?
It's really strange. So the Doug Wilson guys and Durbin and Jeff White and those guys, the Apologia guys, like, got together and made a statement of faith, basically, and everyone signed it. I don't know if you've seen these like sort of Protestant petitions where they'll sign like, "We disaffirm gay marriage." And it's like this ecumenical canon that has no real binding authority, but people just sign it.
Yeah.
So they all signed this thing that effectively, like, because they don't have a formal way to excommunicate Webben or anyone like that, they said, we're disassociating formally with anyone that effectively, like, at the end of the day, disagrees with the post-World War II narrative in its wholeness, right? And so they've made this.
Both
like,
sides
doctrine.
are making this. They're making this into an idol in their lives, right? Like,
it's
the dispensationalists make. Dispensationalists make it an idol, and then the anti-dispensationalists in the Protestant sphere, they, like Webben and Corey Mahler.
Yeah, they're post-millennials.
Yeah, they make that an idol in their theology. Like, that's that's 90% of what they talk about. Have you ever gone and listened to Joe Webben for more than like
all the time? I used to talk to him. I even talked to him, like, I called him.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I talked to him on the phone and stuff. Like, he is a post-millennial, but he's slowly been moving toward covenant sort of Presbyterian theology, but he's basically like stuck as a Reformed Baptist. Now, it's been a long time since I've listened to him. But it's just such a, like, whatever kind of mess they want to point at, like, let's say Eastern Orthodox or Eastern mystics, which is ridiculous, like absolutely insane to say.
They're Hindus.
1,000 times worse. Like, it's not even close when it comes to like consistency. It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so they boil it down to like, well, we just believe in the gospel. And
what
does that mean?
Yeah. Right.
Because Needgod.net believes in the gospel, but does he agree with Corey Mahler?
He's Ray Comfort Jr. He's just Ray Comfort. He's Australian or Kiwi or something like that.
He's Australian.
I think he's Australian.
He sounds just like Ray Comfort as a 20-year-old, right? Like, that's what he does.
It's identical. It's the street preaching. I used to, by the way, my dad and I, we used to study Ray Comfort's Way of the Master course, and we would do street preaching with our church. So I'm very familiar with that stuff. But real quick, $5 from Monarchia. He says, it's really sad that the last heroes Protestant have are Ortland, Need God, Indiana Booner, Canon and Creed, and Insane People. You can tell how fast it's
What about
dying.
the other Paul?
It is. They don't have.
Oh yeah, other Paul.
Yeah, they don't have. Anybody that's rallying them. It's like the days of the Great Awakening where there's one or two preachers that are just like on fire.
Yeah,
Or
Whitfield,
even in the 70s with what's his name?
Sproul.
No, the guy that did the huge rallies.
Billy Graham.
Yeah.
They don't have
he's
anyone
an
like that.
evangelical.
Who?
They have Furtick and guys like that in the charismatic world, right? So you got
Tyler
your
Perry.
you got your like charismatics, right? So it's really like Stephen Furtick or Elevation World, like that kind of stuff, like very very large mega church emotionalism, Pentecostal type. So that's pretty big as far as mere Protestantism goes.
But they're not debating. They're not the people that are leading them theologically. These are people that go, "Oh, it's okay, whatever you believe, as long as you love Jesus," kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
They wouldn't
debate. Matter to them.
They wouldn't debate. In fact, they'd probably call Orthodox Christians brothers. Like they would not. They don't. They have very ecumenical. The only people that are stiff upper lip are your Southern Baptists and your, I would say, Reform. They're very like antagonistic. The only people that were left.
I got to push back on this just a little bit. Just I'm not trying to be mean, but they're ecumenical in a fake way. You say that they would have let it happen. It's like, no. Once their congregation, the money stops coming in as much because a bunch of people become Orthodox, then suddenly they're anti-icon, and it's just like Sam Frog and all these other people.
I would agree. Yeah, they're very.
I know what you're saying. I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be.
No, and I would agree with both of those things.
That's
they
true.
are very ecumenical on the surface level, but the moment, let's say like 10 people, let's say 10 significant people from their church, who are like core foundation stones for your community church, if they leave and become Orthodox, let's say there's like even 5 of them, and let's say you have
or they lose a debate.
Let's say you have a congregation of like 200 or 300 people, which is a pretty sizable community church. And you lose 3 or 5 like core members of your church, core families. Those people lose their minds. This is why every once in a while
they lose their money.
Yeah, you'll see a Reformed pastor or a Baptist out of nowhere who nobody knows. No one knew who their channel was like 5 minutes ago. All of a sudden, they'll do like this huge expose on Eastern Orthodoxy. Why? Because they're being asked this at the pulpit. They're being asked about it. They're being, or they've noticed that people are leaving, and they're like, "Oh my gosh." Right. And I don't think it's always conscious, by the way. I don't think they're always thinking, "Oh, my money train." I don't think a lot of these people are dishonest, right? I don't think that
a lot of these.
Go ahead.
Their heart might be in the right place.
A lot of these people are also Baptists that you're talking to, if you notice.
Yeah.
So, like, one thing that I'm noticing, and I come recently from the PCA world. I was Reformed Baptist before I was Presbyterian.
You're schismatic from the PCUSA. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, right. PCUSA was the gay. They went gay. Yeah. So, like, the basic, like, all your Presbyterians are like really pietistic. I do think, however, that there are probably a number of Presbyterians that could come up and bat a little bit, right? They like, now I don't think they're convincing, but I think they could come up to bat. But one of the problems is they're very like, how can I say this? Concerned with piety. And so like, in also their world is crumbling a little bit. So like the ones that are left, I don't know if you're familiar with Ligonier, which R.C. Sproul started,
yes.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Very familiar.
So R.C. Sproul started that, and it's a totally different situation. That Ligonier ministry has had like 2 or 3 in the past 3 years, massive falls from grace with pastors there, like just imploding, including the church that R.C. Sproul is a part of. And so like what you're seeing is the failures of Reformed Baptist theology and Baptist theology at large. But what I saw someone write in your chat, they were like, we don't have any Greg Bonsons left. Well, here's the thing, man. Bonson and the Reconstructionists were kicked out because they were too hardcore for the Presbyterians at the time. So they were Reconstructionists. So Rushdoony, Bonson, they're all, and Bonson died early. So what happens is whenever you have people that are pushing in a heavy conservative way, that's pretty like not winsome as far as I could see in the Presbyterian world, those people are snuffed out. Like they're just stomped on. And so those people end up in the Wilson, Webben, that sphere, even the Mahler sphere, because there's no authority to bind them, but they're also losing a ton of conservative men because they don't have a backbone.
Dan the Unk, who's listening in the X space, says the megachurch evangelicals aren't going to debate anything. They're all about growth, numbers, etc. I'm from that world.
Yes.
It's a business.
It's a business.
Which is why Jay Dyer became famous for calling it business church. That was like one of his big breakout moments on the internet.
Church.
At least on X, he's like calling it business church. That was one of like the big memes that really came out early on in his career, and he's absolutely correct. It's all business church. Paul Washer, actually, I have a famous story about this. I used to listen to so much Paul Washer because, but if you listen to Paul Washer's sermons, listen to like I don't recommend this like if you want to keep your sanity, but listen to like 5 of his sermons sometime in a row and notice how it always gets emotional at the same beats. There is he brings you down low and then he brings you up and then he brings you back down and then he self-castrates himself, right? Like in front of the audience where he's like, I'm in danger.
You're better off just watching Jay's
right? Like he'll start like moralizing about how he's like, I'm in danger of my soul by preaching this to you. If I'm preaching to you a false gospel, if what I'm telling you right here, right now, is not true, my immortal soul is in danger. And it's like, well, dude, like he does that every time, right?
I also want to point out here.
Yeah, what's up? Dan, you're speaking.
Oh, real quick. So yeah, I'm from that mega church world. I used to work in it quite extensively. We called it the circuit, which is kind of cringe in hindsight, but the same circuit like Furtick, freaking Judah Smith, Joel Osteen, like all these guys that would guest speak at each other's churches. I was in a lot of those rooms. When I tell you what you just said, they study for preaching by watching comedians, by practicing tone, ups and downs, when to get the crowd hype and quiet, when to get emotional, the pianist back on stage for things. It is a total business model. That's what it is.
It's performative.
It's very performative.
I was in those circles too. I remember very distinctly the pastor had this hand signal at my church, and it was a fast growing church that I went to. He had a hand signal, and when he signaled, you would always see it. He would like tap his pants like 2 or 3 times when he felt like his message was getting to that emotional throw, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you'd hear the piano, bling, 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 and you're just like, oh, I know where this is going. And the thing is when I was growing up, I'm not an emotional guy. Neither is my dad. Neither is my grandfather. We're that's not how we are. We're very analytical, very logical people. We like to break down the faith in things that are practical for our lives, right?
And you were Reformed, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so we would every time that would happen, I would just like inside just die of cringe because everybody else would be raising their hands and swaying, and I hated that because it felt so performative, and it's never sat well with me. And then when I graduated high school, I just couldn't do it anymore, and I stopped attending really church. I still believed in Jesus because my analytical and logical mind said, yes, this is obviously true.
There's something here.
There's something here. But whatever I grew up with, that's not it, right? And it wasn't because like I didn't value what my parents instilled in me, or like what they said, read the scriptures, be faithful, don't lie, all those things. All those things were so important to me in my formative years. But once I noticed the trappings, kind of what Dan is talking about, where they're like, hey guys, this is how we're going to get, this is like, they would literally have marketing meetings at my church. Like, how do we get more people in the community to know about our church? And at the time they were just building their first, they were meeting in a school gymnasium or auditorium. And they would essentially it was like a pop-up church kind of, and they would have it on Sundays, and the school would rent it out during the on Sundays. And I just distinctly remember this happening, and I just to this day it shocks me.
Yeah.
They would say we
true.
have enough money to have a full church, but we're not going to do it because it would undermine our selling point that we're like this how do you gritty young person church that like we don't care about no building, like buildings are
grassroots.
Yeah, we're grassroots. Even though the numbers of people going to this church, they had 3 services every Sunday, and they were they probably had 400 to 500 congregants. And they were growing rapidly. And then of course the reason we stopped attending that church is there was a scandal with the lead pastor where he was essentially wasn't quite sexting numerous women in the church, married women, but he was. right.
Classic move.
Yeah, and it imploded that church. He's still the lead pastor of that church to this day. He repented, quote unquote, and now he's all good. He's still married to his wife and stuff like that, and his kids. But that completely destroyed that church. I mean, it never recovered to the same numbers that it would have. And I just remember sitting there and my dad talking about it, and my dad was like pissed because my dad's like, if we have the opportunity to have a building, that is a landmark of the community. Like a church is a landmark. We should want people to know that we're there. We shouldn't want to continue to be a community pop-up center. Right. My dad
they
was
have
just
this
outraged.
idea of like they have that idea of the early church was a home church. It was grassroots. They didn't do anything fancy. And so we just have to keep building these little home communities. And that's how we do church. We just spread like it's slow church to the lowest degree.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's sad because I mean, it's pretty much an issue where they don't really see the need to glorify God, which is again why they think veneration is worship. They don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like, this may come as a little bit of a shock to you, but in a time where people didn't have a lot of extra wealth lying around, medieval kings spent every penny in their treasury to build massive cathedrals.
That was their way of
churches.
showing. That was their way of tithing in a sense.
They're still protesting they're still protesting Catholicism, and they're also like very puritanical in their roots, right? So this idea of like large, big, and authoritative decree from a pretty central authority is just against all that there's in their beings. And it kind of fuels the American ethos too, and is fueled by the American ethos, which is like this idea of like decentralization,
rugged
no high
cowboy.
church, yeah, we want bootstraps, but we don't want, but what they don't understand is they end up choosing a leader anyway, or one fills that vacuum anyway, and it becomes a mess.
I'll say too, like, so my mother, when I was pre-supping my mom, and it actually worked for me, okay? Let the record show that it worked for me. When I was pre-supping my mother, the first thing I really had to drive home was like, we're not Catholic.
Yeah.
Right? Because the reality is that our Marian dogmas are nothing like the Catholics. Their perspective on Mary is nothing like ours. The only similarity is we both admire her. That's it. Their views
I get
on
it.
Are nuts. And you're seeing.
I get why people see that.
No, and like I said, so I had to spend a lot of time telling my mother, like, hey, we're not Catholics, and she ended up
it's tough
wanting
too,
to be Orthodox because
even if I've actually struggled with this a little bit as a new guy, right? I'm an inquirer. I'm not even a catechumen. And it's not the Marian dogmas, or I would say, the Marian theology, which actually I love. I really think
I love it
because it's blessed. But there's a sense in which you find like the Panagia is everywhere, right? So there's like people that will have icons of the Panagia, like, and not Christ, maybe in their office or in their car or some, and it's like, I get what's going on here, and a lot of times the Panagia has Christ there, and usually in
almost
as a baby.
Almost every icon will have her displaying the Christ child, right?
Right, but I do understand why people may get that vibe from the laity. Now, not from if you listen to the church, the priests, the bishops, and read the canons, like that's not the case, but just from like person to person, you'll find some people that really elevate the Theotokos
I think that's
all the time.
There is truth to that. I think that again, that's a pastoral concern, right? That's a concern where if a priest is noticing somebody's maybe getting a little too hardcore into a single, it's kind of the same people that like every single word that St. Augustine ever said, I'm going to cling to and pretend that it's like this binding, authoritative. Like when you make a single saint your entire personality, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's really hard too. It's really hard.
I do want to say something
if you read them a lot.
Because you're right, and I dealt with the same thing. So I converted to Orthodoxy because I was deployed to Afghanistan, and whenever we didn't have churches, obviously, shocking, I know, we couldn't go to church on Sundays. So we all kind of just divided up and hung out with people on Sundays if we could, if we weren't doing missions or something at the time. And I was always there's basically 3 Russians and a Serb. And they'd always drag me away, and they would say, "You are accidental Orthodox. We are waiting for you to become priest." And I did, because my theology had accidentally become Orthodox because I strongly believe the Bible is Orthodox. And if you read it, you'll start to see it if you stop having presuppositions about what it's supposed to be saying. And
that's great.
My point is, I'm still American though. it still makes me like takes a minute. It took me a little while to get the hang of it. And what you're saying, the Americans have this thing like, well, pull yourself up, no big buildings, pull yourself up by bootstraps. The beauty of Orthodoxy is it does lean you into it over time. My mother and I hate this too, and I'm sure y'all been to evangelical churches where you hear them like, put your hands up, and I'm like, I ain't doing anything you say just because you told me, right? And that I remember my priest told me, hey man, don't worry about it if you don't want to kiss the icon. Give it time.
Yeah, I think that's something. It's a relate. People forget that the icons are meant to be, they're meant to be manifestations of a relationship, right? They're meant to be representations of the people that we're actually like. They're prototypes of the actual person. We're not supposed to like the icons are not like just a tool. They're actually supposed to represent that person and allow us to, in some way, connect with the people that we are worshiping with. They're worshiping with us, right? Like we believe we're in a cloud of witnesses when we're in the state of worship. The divine liturgy is literally us participating in the heavenly worship that they're participating in. And so that's like when you start thinking of it that way, when they do, hey, turn around and bow to the person, like I don't know if you guys do this in your jurisdiction, but in my jurisdiction there's a tradition where before you go, you line up to go to confession. We confess every Sunday at my tradition. Every Sunday you confess, and we line up and we turn around and we cross our hands and we bow to the person behind us or the people behind us, and they bow back to us, right? And that's a small thing. It's really small, but I noticed that it's like this participatory act of we are all worshiping and doing this together. And if you read the scriptures, I think it's very clear that the church was always meant to be communal. And I think that the American mindset has created this sense of the community is accidental to the faith, right? It's an accident to the faith. It is not it's not the core. It's not the core center of the faith. Whereas with Christ, it says, no, the body of Christ. The body of Christ is not just you, an individual. It is.
Well, they speak on community a lot. Like community, they even call themselves community churches. But what they don't believe is that the people in there are necessarily all quote unquote saved or Christians. They might be, they may not be because of their invisible church doctrine. So it becomes this like, it's not as though the person next to you is also working out his salvation with you. He may or may not be there. So what it ends up becoming is lowest common denominator community. And it's like, oh, we just get together for food or to talk about our feelings or to, go to the gun range, whatever it is, right? That's what that community becomes. It doesn't become a Christ-centered community per se. It becomes community that talks about Christ.
Yeah.
Right.
Vaguely.
And that usually, now, I mean, I think in the Reform camp, in my position, that's a little different, but that becomes more like a scholastic community. And I actually, at least in my experience, becomes this sort of like, let me wield my doctrine community. That's kind of the Reform world. It's not like, it's not participating in sanctification. It's participating in, because what they would say is like, we need to know God better. And that's like literally a propositional knowledge better. Yes. That's how they would describe it.
It's not participatory as in so much as it's a mental assent, right? It's like the more you mentally ascend in your knowledge of God, the more you know him, that is sanctification for them. I grew up in those spheres. Like
that's right.
It was all about studying. This is why, like, actually, you'll notice one of the biggest critiques. There was a panel, and John MacArthur, R.C. Sproul, and a bunch of other guys in that movement. This was probably like 15, 20 years ago at this point. They were all sitting on a panel, and someone came up and asked about Eastern Orthodox. Like, what are the chief errors of Eastern Orthodoxy? And they all kind of were hemming and hawing, and they said, oh, they're basically Roman Catholic light, which of course is nonsense. But then one of them said, you'll notice that they don't really have really big dogmatic theological books, which is, by the way, also not true. We have big tomes of theology, but what he means is that they don't have a lot of people who write like systematics.
Yeah.
For them, they've reduced it all to these like systematic theologies.
I'm looking at like 17, maybe 20 different volumes of Reformed systematic theology that have multiple tomes.
You still got them behind you.
I still got them all. And
that's hilarious.
I don't know if I'm going to get rid of them or not.
Which set do you have?
I'd keep them.
No, I'd keep them because they're good for
which
reference.
one do you want? Like I have the Smalley one. I have all the Calvin's Institutes, of course. I have the recent Weller systematic. I've got your Grudem systematic. I've got your Burkhoff systematic.
You were all
right?
in, man. You were
I got your
all in.
Edwards.
I had like one set. I had one set,
Yeah.
and then I had Calvin.
I've got your Machen, right? And like,
oh my gosh,
I've even got all the frame stuff, right? Like his and frame's pretty brilliant, honestly. But he's he's a reform guy. But one of the things I think that's also tough is living in America. This is one thing that really actually helped me. Is there's a sense in which when people think of Christians in the United States and they think of people that live in the East, it's just very hard to explain. When they think of somebody who's Christian, it looks like them. And it's not somebody who is, let's say, chanting, wearing a cassock, in a rug, praying. That person is othered, or that's a Muslim.
Yes.
Like that's basically the ethos of American Christianity.
Yeah, that's a good point. America's got a very unique aesthetic. That is like completely divorced from like a European converting to Orthodoxy is not a huge like tall order, because for them even their Protestant churches tend to be very high church Protestant, even though a lot of them are LGBTQ plus. The trappings are still there, right? Like the cloaks. Maybe their lesbian priest might have a collar, right? And so, you know what I mean? There's still a lot of formality in those places, whereas in America it's a very informal place, and it didn't used to be like that, but it's become that, right?
Well, it's kind of interesting because it was actually like that for a long time. Now you had like your Episcopal, right? Your crew, but your Puritan Reformed Presbyterian types, they were, depending on, especially if you're like a Covenanter or the Scottish Reformed, even Dutch Reformed, like they're so against any kind of aesthetic. It was always low in a sense of the aesthetic. Now they might have had like a building that maybe had a high ceiling, but that was it. That was the extent of it. Some of them wouldn't even put crosses in there because they didn't want any aesthetic, right? They might have a pulpit.
And in their perspective, it really is.
Exactly. Could be. It could be. They call it a totem, right? They'd be like, you're holding a totem because you think it has power. That kind of thing.
I've heard. So I mean that is the logical conclusion of some people's view on what counts as idolatry. I will say too, I think that especially when it comes to the United States, like you said, it's like there is this disconnect, but that's not just here, right? Like if you go to I have to do a lot of court stuff because I was a private investigator. Depending on which court you go to, right? You go to like rural Oregon and you go to Rainier, and the judge looks like the judge from My Cousin Vinny, and he sits 80 feet above you, and you have to crane your neck up to look at him to talk to him, right?
Yeah.
And when he walks in the room, if you don't rise, he will send you to prison or send you to jail, right? If you're not dressed correctly, he will say, "I'll hear your case tomorrow. Get out." Right? Like my point being is not that, but then you go to somewhere else and that's not the way it is at all. And it's not just an issue of, look, the American West no longer appreciates like formality and stuff like that. It's like at all. It's not just a religious thing. It's at all. Period. I mean, look at how people dress. You know what I mean? You go to the grocery store and dudes are wearing like sweatpants. You're like, what the hell is going on here? Why are you dressed like this?
Address something in the chat. Someone says, "Are you going to chat with our BFF Sig soon?" Sig can hop into any chat he wants to hop into, but I don't really have much desire to go out of my way to talk to him, frankly. I mean, that's just
Siggy Stardust himself.
That's the reality of the situation. Though we do want to cover this because and I'm going to share the in the space the tweet that that we're covering real quick. So this is Anthony Swamin wanted us to cover his interaction with Mahler, so might as well go into that real quick. This was the originating tweet was, "If you're a Westerner, LARPing is Eastern Orthodox." So again, I don't understand what LARPing means. Like these people are always really hilarious to me. I just would like to quickly address this. LARPing means that you're role playing as it, but you're not really it. But the thing is that all the people that I know that become Orthodox, it's not easy. Like, and Bruce, you're probably experiencing this now. It is not a short process. It's not, oh, I had a feeling about like I had it like this feeling, and now I'm converted, and then I'm going to be a member in like a week or two after I show that I'm consistent or something like that, right? It's not like evangelical or Lutheran style where you just start going and you're like essentially, you're welcomed in, you're a part of the crew now, right? No, Eastern Orthodox, like your catechism it's pretty standard to at least do a year. Sometimes you get a little less than a year if they want to like squeeze you into Pascha and you've only been there for 8 months instead of a year. But most of the time, you're catechized for at least a year. That is not someone who's LARPing. That is a lot of work. working to become Orthodox, learning the faith, learning how to do the prayers, doing your morning and evening prayers, going to services multiple times, sometimes twice a weekend. So people are going to Vespers, and then they're going to Orthros, and then they're going to Divine Liturgy. Like, it is not an easy process. So whenever someone says LARPing, it's like, I don't understand what LARPing is if that is LARPing, right?
Well, a bunch of the Latinizers blocked me because they said that it's a way of making money, and I said, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. If I was a Catholic, I'd have 2,000 followers on X already.
It's
It's
just a
easy
bunch
to
of
make money as a
buzzwords.
Catholic.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not true. Like, people like Cleaved Antiquity and Alex Soren stuff are leaving money on the table by choosing to be Orthodox instead of choosing to be
Imagine Alex
Protestant
Soren with his level of debate skill, which he's obviously a good lawyer. He's a good debater. He could easily be one of the top Protestant debaters overnight.
There is more money in Protestantism than there is in Eastern Orthodoxy.
Oh, by far.
It's a ridiculous argument.
Maybe one could argue Greeks. There's a lot of money amongst the Greek community, to a degree. I'm just but by and large, you're right. Yes, it's like, but that's in America.
But I would say, like, if you were to be like an evangelical, I think you'd probably make more money than the Greeks also.
Probably. Yeah, I would say so too. And my point being is that it's just a constant lie that they tell us, and that we had to give up something to become Orthodox. I have family members who don't even speak to me anymore, because they are cringe missionaries that go to South America to try and convert random people, and what they do is they show them a movie about Jesus, and that's all they do. That's the whole thing. And the last conversation I had with my uncle was that he told me I shouldn't own firearms because Jesus was anti-violence. And I said, well, what do you think he used the whip for then exactly? And he said, well, he didn't hit anyone with it. I said, you are aware Jesus killed people in the Old Testament when he led the armies of Israel from Egypt, right? And they're like, and he looked at me, and I realized he had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like,
yeah,
oh the
theophanies are a niche. Like, there are some Protestants that will cover, like, Jesus was in the Old Testament, but it's actually not something they preach on almost ever. I grew up, I don't think I ever once heard about the theophanies growing up. It's like a niche theological topic. It has no relevance. For them, it has the Old Testament manifestations of Christ have, even if they do believe it, some of them don't believe it, but even if they do believe it, it has no relevance to the New Testament gospel for them. It's
because they view it as a new covenant, not as the fulfillment of the old covenant.
There is truth to that for some of them, yes. But anyways, let's cover this. So he says, Corey Mallarks continues on and says, I strongly suggest you desist immediately. There will be no quarter for traitors. So, of course, the implication is that we're all traitors. Big laughs, haha, whatever. This is stupid. Anthony responds saying, you speak game, do you ever act? If we're traitors, what are you I think he's trying to say, you going to do about it? All I see you ever do is complain on X in an echo chamber. Show us what you will do. If we're such pests, how are you going to get rid of us? And then Corey responds saying, I suggest you take the opportunity to repent and amend your life. Repent of what? He doesn't say. Those are big words coming from you. My life runs outside of Twitter. It's not my business to air it out to you people. Not sure. And now, sure, I'll bring this sort of thing to my confessor, but the point still stands that you're out here liking us to public enemy number one. He says, traitors, the traitor is, in fact, worse than any enemy. And he says, do you have anything substantive to substantiate these claims outside of these platitudes? My family's been here since the mid-17th century. They certainly weren't Protestant. And my conversion is writing of the wrongs that we're subject to in France. And if I knew their names, I would pray for them. And so, I mean, I think in essence, I get what he's trying to get here. I think I understand where Anthony's trying to go here. The essence of what he's saying here is that Orthodoxy is not this I don't have any loyalty to Russia. I'm baptized under the Russian Orthodox Church, and I have a fondness for Russia. But let's say there was a case
Germany too,
in which
in France and
the Russians were actually, I'll use a historical example because this is the best example I can give. When the Russians and the Japanese were fighting, you know what St. Nicholas of Japan said to his Japanese flock, who came to him and said, "What do we do? We're at war with our brothers in the faith." And he said, "You pray for your country, of course." He says, and I'll have to pray for mine. So therefore, I will not publicly talk about my position on this because it's a tragedy and we should pray for a swift end to the conflict. Pray for those who are in the conflict and pray for a swift end to the killing because those are souls on the line, right? That is the position of the Orthodox. Support your country, but also at the same time, use discernment and be prayerful for the end of conflict because we don't want people dying, right? And so, like Corey doesn't even understand the Orthodox understanding of like politics and geopolitics is that they're not supposed to affect the church necessarily, right? There's a symphonia, but it's not necessarily that. And so when he says they're a traitor, dude, you worship Hitler, who was not even an American. Like,
he does, Bo. Actually, I was like, what? Does he really? Oh, yeah, he does. I forgot.
Yeah, he literally thinks Hitler was a saint. It's like, dude, he's not even American, and Hitler was at war with our country. So if anything, you're a traitor, right? Like, regardless, no matter how, like, and again, this is not. I'm not trying to get bogged down in like the historical nuances of World War II. I think there's a lot of nuance there, right? But big asterisks. If you're going to say that we're traitors, what the hell are you when you're redefining American history to be we were on the wrong side of it in World War II? You know, the greatest generation, all of that. Like, if anything, you're the LARPing traitor. You're the one who wants to see the Third Reich take over America. You wanted to see the Germans win. Be honest with us, Corey Mahler. You wanted to see the Germans win. Oh, but America was a Germanic country. Doesn't matter. We went to war with them.
Does it get any more on brand to be a Lutheran and act this way?
I don't know.
Not really.
He's just, the thing is, he's crashing out. It's like his understanding of history is like, imagine pretending to be like far right extremist and then promoting like crazy leftist
socialist, Nazi
theories.
Socialism.
Yeah, well, not even Nazi socialism, right? He's literally pushing straight up communism because he's just mimicking communist talking points in the West of like, oh, Russia bad, because the communists never recovered from getting kicked out of Russia. So now they never shut up about how awful Russia is.
Well, I'd also blame the Lutherans. Like, when you get so woke, you generate people like this that are that opposed to your wokeness. They'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Anywhere but woke. And that's, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised he would team up with Muslims at some point.
Oh, he will. It's inevitable. These people always do this kind of stuff. Just real quick, I got to cover this because they did it, and it'd be disrespectful. Donald Musk sent me 3 gifts. Still don't know what the gifts do, but they're emojis. They're like giant emojis. 350, 400, and 250 joules, whatever the hell that is in YouTube. So thank you very much for that, brother. It is appreciated.
There's a sick eagle flying around the screen. That's pretty cool.
I also want to say, Nicholai, like, it's been you. I know you've probably heard this, but I just want to reiterate it. You, Alex, Cleve, Jay, Jim Bob, Father Stephen DeYoung, you guys have been so helpful to me. And
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It's really hard out there.
It's not. It's not easy. Trust me. I get it, man.
I also feel the same way.
It's hard to find. It's hard to find.
Listen, I understand how isolating it can be when you're kind of theologically disillusioned and you're kind of like, man, I see the holes in my theology and there's no one I can talk to about it in my tradition, right? And so the reason I started like discussing things online was because literally in the American context, there's no one to talk to about these things, right? Like who do you go to, right? You might be lucky and there might be a parish nearby, and that's great. That's something. But I was in Korea. Right? Like, there was one parish that had an English-speaking priest that, thank glory to God, he provided me a person that brought me into the church like that. But it's still very isolating, and so talking about these things when you're still trying, like, especially when you're in a choir, it's really important. So, what I do, again, all I've ever tried to do on this channel is just discuss what has been taught to me. Like, this is how it was explained to me, and it really helped me. I hope it helps you guys. That's essentially my way of doing it, and then also just giving my 2 cents on like controversial things. So I appreciate you saying that. It is appreciated. So where do I have to go?
Wait a minute. If he says that you are one of the people who helped save him and bring him to the Orthodox Church, but there's no one saving but Christ did. What are we gonna do?
Well, I actually was really sobered because I actually know someone that became a monk. He's a friend of a friend. and has really sobered, or he's like, I don't know if he's actually Tantra as a monk yet, right? But he's been there for a couple of years. He supposedly he's been telling my friend, and like every time he talks to him, which is like every few months if they get it lucky to talk to each other, that he said one day Bruce will be Orthodox. And I found that out after I was inquiring. And I was like, that
awesome.
may really makes me.
Bruce
really
will
makes
sniff
me think.
incense.
Yeah, but it's just weird
incense.
because he's got so much to worry about. Like he's a monk now, right? He's got so much to do. But he's like,
well, he worries about his friend.
Well, they pray for the whole
close.
world. They pray for the whole world, and that's something that's humbling too. Is that you realize that there's these people that are praying literally for the whole world. I always say this, like
at all times,
we have
even
this,
in their sleep.
We have this babushka in our parish, and she literally just sits there the whole time, just with her prayer rope, just kind of sitting, like rocking back and forth and praying. And I one time got a chance to talk to her. I said, "Well, what are you doing during the liturgy?" She's like, "I'm praying for everybody and their families." And like with her thick Russian accent, and she's like, with their families and everything else, and she's like, I'm praying they come to Orthodox faith because I want them to have this level of beauty. People always say like there's like we crash out on we maybe like tease the charismatics a bit when they get super hyper emotional. There are moments where and this never happened to me when I was growing up. There are moments where I get a little bit choked up during the liturgy, particularly when I think about the salvation and the holiness and the life of the church in regards to my daughter. I just like it hits you, right? And I something that I really appreciate is that when I'm long dead and gone, and my daughter has her family and her children, and if I do a proper job of raising my daughter and any other kids we have, if I do a proper job of raising them in the faith, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and my great great grandchildren will be worshiping with me, right? And that's something that's sobering, is that the faith that I'm passing on to my daughter will still be the same faith that my forefathers and I had. And that's sobering. Whereas when I was growing up, we started out at one church, and then we went to the next church, and we went to the next church, and there was never any consistency. It was always like, oh, there's an outrage, we move on. And then I remember going back one time. It was like when I was still an inquirer. I was visiting family back in Minnesota, and I went to one of the churches I used to go to as a kid, and I have fond memories there. Not a single person I grew up, not a single family, none of the people that I grew up with, going to youth group with, none of them stayed in that church. They've all scattered because there was either scandals or other things that caused them to just leave and go trek out on their own. There's no rootedness. And what I realized is that, I was thinking to myself as an inquirer, I went there and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to leave. And I left their morning service. It was like 9 a.m. service or something like that. And I just went and found the nearest local Orthodox church, entered into it, and immediately, even though I was an inquirer, I'd only been attending, I think I'd only been actively attending for like 4 or 5 months at that point. There was something deeply moving by the fact that I'm like, I'm following along. Like even though it was in a language that I wasn't used to, I was used to Korean liturgy. I was like, oh, I know where we're at in the liturgy right now, right? Like, oh, I know where. Like, oh wow, like I know where we're at. Even though my liturgy in Korea was mostly Korean and Russian, with some English sprinkled in there because they like me. And there was like 2 other English speaking guys there as well. They were inquirers from the military, and so I just remember like it was in English, and I was like, I can follow along. That's crazy. Like, and there was just something just like deeply moving to me in that moment where I'm like, oh, I get it now. This is how people can say, I'm Orthodox, and it doesn't really matter if I'm Greek, Russian, or anything else. The faith is universal. When they talk about a universal faith, this is what they mean. When they talk about the church and being unity in the church, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about liturgical unity, right? Like the faith of the apostles. And I was just like, oh man, that just like it just struck me in that moment. And I remember my daughter was very young at the time. She was like 2 years old or something like that. Maybe a little younger, a little older, I can't remember. But it just hit me with that. And I think that's the thing that's really important to keep in mind, you know, in the future, is that this this is what Americans have been missing out on for the last probably 80 years, is when a lot of those mainstream churches that you could have said, you know, 100 years ago, it's like, oh yeah, the church you go to, that's the same church you're going to attend when you're older, and then the same one your kids are going to attend. It's Episcopal church. It's pretty standard stuff. There's nothing super controversial there. You're going to get the same core theology that, you know, your great grandfather got, right? That's not the case anymore. And I think that's really sobering.
And this is the point I make to people when they get all like, people get really attached to Catholicism because it's like the ancestral Nate part of it.
Yeah.
Oh, my great grandpa was Catholic and stuff. So I'm well known and documented to be Charlemagne's greatest soldier, right? That's not in dispute by anyone, I don't think. But it was something that was sobering to me as well, was that I was like, if you're Catholic, your service doesn't look anything like theirs. You would not even be able to go, you couldn't go to a service anywhere in the world. If you went to a Catholic service today, you went back in time and tried to go to a service then, right? They would look nothing like the services the Catholic Church has today. And it kind of hits you where you're like, wait a minute. So Orthodoxy is the only church that is still connected to the past in that way. And the point I always make is like, you know, people want to be like, oh, I'm base crusader, bro. Dude, your base crusader church says you worship the same God as the Muslims. What are you talking about, dude? You have no connection to them at all. They would be in shock. They would be disgusted at the very notion that you consider yourself anything. And can you imagine going back to the year like 1200 saying, hey guys, we worship the same God as the Muslims?
Oh gosh, yeah, they would riot.
They'd kill
what?
you. They'd be like, no, burn this dude alive. He's done.
Yeah. And that's sobering. This is why, like, you know, there was all that controversy. I don't know if you guys saw this on the timeline where Jay was debating the Cholo Christian, man. He came up and he was like, man, I'm gonna wear my meta glasses and I'm gonna record this, even though I'm not supposed to, man. And I'm going to like try and get him on a gotcha about this niche historical topic, man. It's totally up for interpretation, but let me tell you, like, I got the right one, man, on this history, man. And so that's what he was doing, right? And what I found hilarious is that Jay was like, at the end when he finally got his like 2 cents out, Jay's like, so that was like, he's like, what does that have to do with anything? Like even if you're right, what does that prove? And the thing is what they're so like, the Roman Catholics have been devolved to, let me try and defend these super hyper niche historical like arguments. And really, what I'm concerned about, and this is what I've always told people, is like, I will never debate a Roman Catholic unless it's on the state of the modern Roman Catholic Church. Show me how your church today is the same one that's been preserved through the centuries. Show me how the Pope today has any meaningful connection to even a Pope 100 years ago, even a Pope 200 years ago. Even the medieval church or the post, like the very recent post Great Schism, they don't. And that is the harsh reality that we have to live with. That is the truth of the matter, right? And so when they never want to debate that, it's like, okay, show me Chieti, show me the Roman Catholic Church producing Chieti level documents, you know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. They weren't, right? And so, like, if you can't show me continuity of faith and belief in your church, then why the hell do I even care about what your church has to say? Your church says our church is valid. It's like,
well,
so at this point, what are we debating about? You know,
I can go to their church and receive communion. Now, I wouldn't, because I don't want their crappy Judaized wafer and I don't want their grape drink, right? But I can, if I want to.
In theory, yeah, they allow for it. Yeah,
they allow me to do that. So we're not excommunicated. We are above the SSPX for the crime of text notes. Not doing Globo Homo services and doing the Mass in Latin instead of doing it in Globo Homo language. Okay, we're better than them. And it's like, well, how? Like, that's why I think it's.
Anthony Swatman, by the way, mentioned something I thought was funny. I just want to note this. He said he has to leave, so I'm just going to cover this real quick. He says something of note with the evangelical thing is that the head pastor of 1122 is one of the richest men in Florida, who wears Rolexes during their services. Yeah, they have no room to complain about any of that stuff. They're like, oh, Pitcher Kirill has a really nice watch that was gifted to him one time. It's like,
Who
yeah,
cares?
who cares?
Like, he has a nice watch.
Listen,
I have a
yeah,
nice watch.
like in terms of like it doesn't look great, so that's why they edited it out. The reason they did that was because, like, yeah, it doesn't look good, but like, what's the problem with him wearing a watch that was gifted to him? He might not have even known how expensive the watch is. Do you think that he spends his time going, ooh, shiny? Listen, like, no one becomes a bishop or a priest to become a multimillionaire and live in lavish luxury. You know how much sacrifice, being like, all the bishops were monastic at some point, right? So there's a lot of sacrifice with monasticism. They have to manage an entire church. They're busy constantly. They're doing services every single day, right? Basically, you think bishops aren't doing services every day? They're essentially doing services every single day. They're either traveling somewhere to do a service, they're doing a conference, they're doing something, right? They're
Yeah.
entirely dedicated to the faith almost 24/7. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are some bishops out there that like just love the prestige and they're doing it for the power or something like that. But I just have a hard time buying that argument, right? It's just a really
Yeah.
low tier argument.
And I agree. I think that it's. I'm not going to sit here and say no. You should never, ever, ever, ever want nice things or anything like that, because I think no, of course you should, right? It's just the reality is they're the ones crashing out about it. I'm like, your leaders are driving a Rolls Royce around, and he's never worked a job before, right? Like, you got to think, like, if you literally have Ruslan openly saying these things.
Yeah.
I need 7 figures. How do I make money off religion? It's like, what?
Yeah. And again, Patriarch Kirill, people always say he's the richest man in Russia. Like, look how much they have, like, something billion dollars in, like, real estate.
Real estate, yeah.
Yeah, because in Russia, legally, the church, it's a Soviet holdover. It's a law from the Soviet times. The church had to have all of church property had to be under the name of the patriarch. They made that a law. So legally, the Russian Orthodox Church had to put all of the property under his name. When he dies, guess what's going to happen? It's going to go under the name of the new patriarch, right? It's like Lord of mercy. People are just so pedantic with these arguments. We will start covering the responses to my tweet about the sinlessness of St. John the Baptist in a second, but we do have somebody that requested to speak. John, what's up?
Not much. First time listening. I'm a recent convert from Catholicism, and so I figured, well, that's exactly what you guys are talking about. I have a little bit of special insight because I'm close friends with the priests. I have some cousins who are SSPX, and
oh
so
man, that's rough. I'm sorry to hear that.
I know
by the
a
way,
couple of things.
Lord of mercy. We're all rooting.
Yeah,
for
no
you,
one's like, we're not like, just to be clear, like, we might laugh about it, but it is a tragedy. It's never fun to see traditional people that are trying their best to live out as traditional of a life in the church as possible. It's never fun to see that kind of thing happen. It's the same thing with the Anglicans. I just think it's a tragedy what's happened. Like the man, they're never gonna live down the lesbian bishop thing, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's just a tragedy. So I just want to make that clear off the bat. But yeah, why don't you let us know what you any insight you might have?
Yeah. So the first thing is, we're feeling it now as the Orthodox as well. It's like the American populace is seeking, a tradition that goes back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's largely that's part of what's driving all these people into Orthodoxy. And there are actually a fair amount of people that are getting siphoned off into Catholicism as well, because they do have a claim on the ancientness of the church. With the See of St. Peter and everything.
Yeah.
And so they have experienced a rise in conversions, but then at the same time, it's like their population in general is really quite old. And so I know the Archdiocese of Detroit is doing a major reorganization right now. They're shutting down all sorts of churches, and they're reducing services and this, that, and the other thing, because it's like, yeah, they have large RCIA, or is it RCIO now? Anyway, they have large convert classes, but for every 50 people who joined the church, it's like they're having 250 people die. So
well, also people,
basic.
I think another thing, and let me know if this is true or not. I speculate that some of the growth is also in Africa and more more third world countries as well. But that's true for all. Like the only growth we're seeing, from my understanding, is some young people in the United States. I will grant that, but also I think a lot of the growth is focused in on those countries out there, from my understanding.
I can't really speak to
Okay.
what's happening in Africa at all, because that's not my experience. Yeah, from what I hear, yeah, it's an explosive growth for basically everybody in Africa right now. But yeah, so I don't know, whatever you might want to ask me about my experience with Catholicism, or my
Yeah,
family's
I mean,
experience. I'd be
yeah, I mean, like my whole thing, and this is what I've always emphasized on my channel, is like, listen, at the end of the day, what is the practical day-to-day reality of your average Roman Catholic? And it's not FSSP, it's not SSPX, it's not sedevacantist or any of these. The average day-to-day Catholic is experiencing Norvis Ordo, right? And some Norvis
yes.
Ordo, I know, and I know people always hate on it a lot. I do know that there are some more reverent Norvis Ordo masses. I know that, right? Like, because but if you look at all of the Roman Catholic apologists on these platforms, they're all attending more traditional.
I go to the Eastern Rite, but I'm a traditional Catholic. Don't you see?
Yeah. They'll go to Eastern Rite Catholic churches. They'll go to, what do you call it? FSSP. They'll go to like traditional Latin mass. That, like, none of them are attending Norvis Ordo. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
I think that is the reality on the ground. And it's like, okay, so it doesn't seem your leadership really cares that that's what people want. They seem to be all in on Norvis Ordo, right?
Well, they've made
Yeah,
that clear.
and a lot of priests seem to abuse that, and like you see, they put up, I don't know what you call it, but like large drapes for the local sports team, and this is a Michigan State church right now. It's like, no, that doesn't belong in the church. And the thing is, with bishops, they're reticent to discipline people a lot of the time, because like if if they're gonna start lopping heads off, so to speak. Number one, there's a priest shortage in the Catholic Church, so they don't want to do that in the first place. But so they're even more reticent. But then, like, if they're going to do anything at all, it's going to end up being quite harsh. And so they just end up sitting on their hands and not doing anything. And like, you have the bishops in Germany talking about female ordination and stuff like that. And there's a lot of insanity going on everywhere. But so one thing I'd like to say though is I think the Catholics are ripe for picking, so to speak, because
Yes.
there is a lot of genuine devotion, and I can talk, again, my experience, my family. One of the things my dad talks about all the time is when what was it? So, but basically, some years back. They're going to take down all the statues in the church, and it's like he led the charge to make sure that wouldn't happen, and organize people, went to all the meetings. They're like, no, we're not doing this, and managed to successfully fight that off. And there's a good number of people like that, where so like whenever my family would go to church and we'd receive communion, my dad specifically taught us to never go to the extraordinary ministers, to go to the priest or the deacon. Um, so it's like there's a lot of people out there who are like, here's the proper way to do things. Yes, we know the paperwork says you can do it this other way, but the best way is the proper way. You go to the priest for communion, and you receive it on your knees. One thing, I do really like the reverence that Catholics have for receiving the Eucharist. Now, whether or not they actually have the grace of God in it is a different matter. But it's like there are a lot of people who are genuinely trying and doing their best. And
well, they're mostly people raised in this church. Like what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we'll see a lot more of them coming over in the future. And like Pope after Pope Francis and now Pope Leo, just bleeding heart liberals, and it makes it hard for people to hang on. Where it's like they had Pope Urban II saying we should have a crusade, and that guy, and supposedly Leo, who is it, the 14th now? Leo the 14th is Urban II's equal, and he's going and blessing the gates to Europe, saying we should let in all the foreigners. And
it's trash.
And saying remigrating them is a crime.
I want to see, like, here's the thing, like, it's always like a photo op with these people too. They don't live with the reality of what happened. So Pope Leo goes and does that. Where is he in currently what's happening in Spain? Where is he going to go there and watch all those young men who are flooding into, of course it's not Spain proper, it's like the small little slice of land next to Morocco. They basically burst through the gates on it's essentially a military installation, really. And what I always found very kind of amusing is that he's not there letting in all these young guys that, by the way, if they had the opportunity, would kill him, right?
Yeah.
Like if they had the opportunity to get the Pope alone, do you think any of those young men who are radicalized Muslims wouldn't take the opportunity to murder him? Of course not. But I hate to use this term, but it's like this elitist class that just doesn't live with the reality of what the common person has to deal with. Like, do you think the average Spanish woman that's been look up the rates of rape that have been going on in Europe and like skyrocketing over the last 20 to 30 years with mass migration? It's absolutely insane.
250,000 women were sold into sex slavery by Muslims in England alone. 250,000.
Yeah. And that's not alone. Even like, guys, those are numbers that they've actually like caught.
That's what they acknowledge.
Yeah, that's what they acknowledge. The number is probably closer to like 3 times more. So you're talking like close to 1 million. 1 million over the last 30 years. And that's not even including France. Like, no one is even talking about what's going on in France. I guarantee you it's just as bad in France. Guarantee you it's just as bad in Germany. It's just as bad in Spain. It's just as bad in Portugal, Italy, all these places. The grooming gangs you think exist only in the UK? Are you out of your mind? Right? They exist everywhere. And the only places that seem to even care about this situation are Eastern Europe, but that's because they know what they still have a living memory of what it was like living under Muslim occupation. They still have people that had like parents that lived under the Ottomans, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, you go further than that. I brought this up because historical arguments obviously is my thing I like to do. Every time the Catholics will say like, oh, but we drove out the Muslims. I'm like, no, you didn't actually. The people who drove the Muslims out of Europe were the Russians, who did the 99% of the lifting, because guess what? The Mongolians were Muslim, dude. I don't know if you knew that. And not to mention they drove the Mongolians out, and furthermore, they also drove out the Ottomans. The majority of the heavy lifting of the destruction of the Ottomans was the Russian Empire.
Actually, the only reason Turkey still exists as a modern state and it hasn't been reconverted is because the Protestants and Catholics of Western Europe decided to intercede and stop the Tsar from crushing them.
Maybe the Fatima told them to. Maybe that's what happened there.
Twice this happened 3 different times, 3 separate
times.
There
were multiple occasions where the French specifically allied with the Ottomans to go fight the Austrians and other stuff.
Yeah, crazy. The French and the British were absolutely freaking brutal towards Eastern Europe. They took every opportunity they could to stop the Ottoman Empire from collapsing, because they didn't. 3 separate times, by the way. I think it was it Peter the Great? I can't remember. It was like the 1700s. Russia had an opportunity to liberate Constantinople.
Yes.
Right when they were on the doorstep of getting there, the British interceded and said, if you go to Constantinople, we'll essentially go to war with you. And they're like, well, we can't afford a war with the British, right? And then there was a second time, I want to say it was in the 1800s, but I could be wrong. Again, a czar is marching in on the Turks, completely just just destroying them. Crimean War, I think it was.
Yes.
Another opportunity to completely crush the Ottomans and the Turks. Once again, Western Europe gets involved and says, no, essentially, right? And then World War One, they destabilized Russia, who was on the doorsteps of the Ottomans again to liberate it. And then
whenever Greece invaded and took over most of Turkey, they abandoned Greece and screwed them over.
Yeah. Yep. Turkey had the opportunity. I would say 30 to 40% of Anatolia probably could have been under Greek control today if it was not for Western Europe again. So, like, I don't want to hear it from these people. Like, it's like, like Eastern Europe's, man, they were conquered by they lived under Ottoman persecution for all this time.
Because we were the ones fighting them.
Yeah, and well, also, I just like they were under persecution. They lost Constantinople. Yeah, thanks a bunch for that, by the way. You know,
they were Uniate at that point, by the way. The Catholic Church had taken control of Byzantium at that point.
Yeah, that's true. But so, we're not going to get bogged down into that niche history stuff. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that up. But yeah, John, thanks for chiming in. We're going to cover this now because people were just losing their minds on this. I think this is a tradition of the Roman Catholic Church too, by the way, that St. John the Baptist was uniquely without sin. But
yes, if I could explain that real quick, because I have actually had that explained to me by some Catholic monks. It was specifically with the visitation when Mary visited her cousin Elizabeth. When John the Baptist leapt in the womb, that was the point at which he was cleansed of original sin, and so he did not get an immaculate conception, but he was sinless.
Preserved. He was preserved from sin. Yeah, yes, in some graceful way. Yeah, for us, obviously, the Orthodox message is that the Orthodox position is that everybody born of sin is still capable of not sinning if they cooperate with God. Right? It's and this is why the Theotokos and Saint John the Baptist still died, right? Even though they were filled with grace. But anyways, so where were these people? Oh yeah. I asked this guy name. He said, therefore, just as sin came through the world through one man and death through sin, so death spread to all men because all men sinned. And I just asked him, has an infant sinned? And he says, he used Psalms 51:5, and Timothy, you're familiar with this one. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. And then I'm like, well, go read the rest of that psalm.
Yeah, please.
Please
read the whole psalm.
Please, I'm begging you. We're literally begging you to read scripture. Like,
but they won't, because they,
you know, and the thing is that who was writing the Psalms, Timothy? Who was the person
David.
that David? And what exactly is the context to David? Psalms, what is it? 50, 51? Let me pull it up.
Was Psalms praying for his unborn son at that point, or unborn child? Hold on.
I can't remember. There's so much. No, that one might be a different one. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according to the multitude of your tender mercies. Blot out my transgressions. Transgressions. Let me fix this real quick. I'm gonna stop sharing screen real quick, and I'm going to share the window so that people can see the entirety of my screen here. There we go. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me of sin, for I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is always before me. Against you, only you have I sinned, and done this evil, he's talking specifically, in your sight, that you may be found just when you speak and blameless when you judge. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin my mother conceived me. Hello, David was brought forth in iniquity. His mother conceived him in sin. She was an adulterer. Behold, you desire the truth in the inward parts, and the hidden parts you will make me know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me with whiter than snow. Creating me a clean heart, O God. There is a part where he goes into this. Deliver me from the guilt of bloodshed, O God. the God of my salvation and my tongue. O Lord, open my lips, my mouth, and show forth your praise. For you do not desire sacrifice, or else I would give it. You do not delight in burnt offering. The sacrifice of God are a broken spirit and contrite heart. These, O God, you will not despise. By the way, that kind of destroys PSA. Let me. Oh, I have to add. I have to add this to stage. I forgot to do that.
Another PSA life support set moment. Okay.
Do you, in your good pleasure to Zion, build the walls of Jerusalem? Then you'll be pleased with sacrifices of righteousness, with the burnt offering and the whole offering. They shall offer bulls on your altar. So, where in that they take one section of that, verse 5, and they say, oh, that means that every infant ever is born in iniquity and born into sinfulness.
I like how these sola scriptura enthusiasts they always do that. Like at least from the ones I engage with, they always like to quote mine, but they never it feels like they never read the full chapters of what they are quote mining, or they have never really even bothered to read the Bible. So I'm like, if you're going full, like hardcore sola scriptura, at least read the full context of what you're quote mining.
Yeah, and this is the same thing with it's the same. There's another Psalms that they always read to prove like total depravity or something like that. Or which one is it, Timothy? The one where David is like saying he's like despondent and he's despairing, and then at the end he's like, actually, God, you're faithful.
Oh, you're thinking of where he says,
which one is
my
it?
God, why have you forsaken me?
Ah, yes, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yes. Which Psalms is that again?
That's says,
I think it's also.
Which Psalms is that?
I think it's also. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just trying to remember this.
I think it's Psalm 14 and 53.
It might be 13.
Psalm 14 sits at all turned aside and become corrupt. Not a single person does good. That's Psalm 14, I think, in the Masoretic, which I'd say.
Someone in chat's going to remember for me.
Psalm 14.
Speaking of the Protestant response PSA of Psalms.
And 22, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the Protestant response regarding PSA to Psalms 132:10?
You don't even have to say the Protestant response, because there's alleged
Orthodox
people who also are obsessed
so we're going to start with
PSA.
Psalms 22.
Why?
Psalms 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from my words of my groaning? And then he goes on and is super despondent, like David often is.
Yes, he's my favorite doomer.
He's our guys. We love our favorite doomer.
I'm a David stan, so like I love Psalms, like love Psalms.
Where does it say?
Yeah, you brought me out of the womb and you made me trust in you. Now, remember in context, what was going on, right? Was that Christ was on the cross. The symbol of Rome was the bull, right? Those of you who played Fallout New Vegas, people out there know about the bull and the bear, So he's on the cross dying, right?
Okay.
And he references the psalm, and all of the Pharisees who are there immediately flee in terror.
Yeah.
Why did they flee? Because they were looking around going, oh no, this is fulfillment of the prophecy of Psalm 22.
Yeah, so Psalms 22, he goes on and he says that for the dogs have surrounded me, the congregation of the wicked have enclosed me. They've pierced my hands and my feet, and I can count all my bones. They look and stare at me. They divide my garments among them for the clothing that cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far from me. My strength, hasten to help me. Deliver me from the sword, my precious life for the power of the dog, blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, oh, so I'm such a doomer, right?
I will declare your name to my
You have answered me. I will declare your name to my brethren. In the midst of the assembly, I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you descendants of Jacob, glorify him and fear him, all you offering. For he has not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, nor has he hidden his face from him, but he has cried to him, he heard. My praise shall be of you. So whenever a Protestant says, oh, PSA, God forsook Jesus, it literally says that actually I'm wrong. David is saying I'm actually wrong. God did not forsake me. He did not forsake me.
Yeah.
He says, all the ends of the world shall remember and turn to the Lord, and all the families of the nation shall worship before you, for the kingdom is the Lord's, and he rules over the nations. All prosperous of the earth shall eat and worship. All those who go down to the dust shall bow before him, even who cannot keep himself alive. A posterity shall serve him. It will be recounted of the Lord to the next generation. They'll come and declare his righteousness to all the people who will be born, that he has done this. Okay? Now notice what the Protestants don't do. They don't read the whole verse, which is hilarious. Like, as someone said earlier, it's hilarious that they're the sola scripturists, you know?
Well, Psalms, like I've said this a million times, I'll say it a million times more. If you have a good priest and you only read Psalms and Proverbs, you'll be fine. Everything you need to know is in Psalms and Proverbs, and your priest will teach you the rest if that's what it comes down to. It's so crazy that they don't read the Psalms and they quote them all the time, and they'll use like the beginning of it to be like, see, God hates you. That's how David was feeling, you dingus.
Yeah.
Not how the actual truth of it. He's in a bad spot, way worse than you. And you're like, no, don't you see that means God hates you?
Psalms 22:16 asked me, speaking of what is the Protestant response regarding PSA, they don't have responses to this, man.
There's no,
they read the scriptures the same way atheists do. Yeah, so true. Thank you guys for that. But here is where they also do this. Lord, remember David and all his afflictions. He swore to Lord and vowed to the mighty one of Jacob, surely I will not go to the chamber of my house or go up to the comfort of my bed. I will not give up sleep. Again, David being typical doomer. Anyways, he's dooming. And he says at 10, for your servant David's sake, do not turn your face away of your anointed. The Lord has sworn in truth to David, he will not turn from it. Well, wait, I thought you said that God does turn his face away from people, right? Well, that's not what seems to be happening here. Right? So again, it's like over and over and over again you see this this pattern. So anyways, to continue with what they responded, we had this guy AJ. He's been kind of an ankle biter for years. He I've always offered for him to come and chat, and he's never taken me up on the offer. And he said, so you believe multiple errors, not just one. Bravo. So he's talking about the Theotokos being sinful, but also St. John the Baptist not being sinless. And I said, list them and debate it. I said, there's none good but God alone. Well, Christ says, why do you say that I am good? Only God is good. Does that mean Christ is not good? If we take a literal interpretation of that, you would be led to like a form of like Arianism, right? It's ridiculous. Yeah. I said, if you take the literal interpretation of that, then you have to throw out all sorts of scripture where God declares people righteous and blameless, which is Job. And actually, let me pull up Job. I don't know why I keep on closing my Bible app. I just need to keep it open. I just keep on closing it thinking, Job, Job right here. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. Blameless and upright. There was a man in the land of Uz named Job, and he was blameless and upright. Sounds like someone who has not committed sin, huh? He had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And then Satan attacks God's character, and this is very important to understand why we don't believe in total depravity. We believe that people can be sinless if they synergize their will with God's will. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord. That's Satan. Satan also came among them, and the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? Satan said, from going to and fro the earth, from walking back and forth. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and shuns evil? And Satan says to the Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made him a hedge around him, around his household, and all those around him on every side? Have you blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased the land? But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse your face. And the Lord said, behold, all he has is in your power, Only do not lay a hand on this person, meaning don't kill him. So Job loses all of his property and all of his children. And which I gotta find the verse. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta pull it up. I just have to type this up. Is James 1:22? Is it? Okay, right here. So Job loses his property and children. I knew it was in this chapter. I don't know why I didn't just keep on reading it, guys. This is what you again. We learned a hard lesson here. Always read. Finish reading. Don't be like the Protestants. Okay.
Yeah.
In Job 1:22. In all this, despite losing all of his property and children, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. So he didn't do any sin. Now in Job 2:10, because I do remember this one. But he said to her, "You speak as one of foolish woman speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversary? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips." So Job, despite experiencing all of that, and then the rest of it is him debating with his friends and God responding and things like that. That's the rest of Job, essentially, right? He didn't sin in all of that. No matter his health, losing his property, losing his everything, his suffering, he did not sin.
But watch, I'm willing to bet money that some Protestants, if they happen to watch this, they will appeal to the verse where Job says, "A man is born, let that day be darkness."
Oh, you mean he's despairing slightly because of the fear of death? Oh no.
Yeah.
Despair. By the way, despair is not a sin necessarily.
No, he said, "Curse the day I was born, and the day that someone said a boy was conceived. Curse the day that I was held to my mother's breast to nurse." Like, because you did not shut the gates of life. Like, basically, I wish you just let me die at birth. Is what he says. Being sad is not a sin, guys.
Yeah, being despondent and sad over your circumstance is not a sin. When Christ was on the cross, and feared death, "Take this cup from me," right? He was sweating blood. Christ was sweating blood. What do you think? Do you think that was a sin in that moment? The fear of death is natural. That's what the church fathers say. It's a natural thing. It's a blameless thing to be fearful of death. Now, what you do in response to the fear of death can be sinful, right?
Yes, and I will say too, because you were saying, like, so the scripture, if you like, I don't know, so I'm sure all of you have
Psalms 22 real quick. Sorry to interrupt. Technically, Job is not a holy prophet. He's not a prophet. He is a layperson. So we call him righteous father, or righteous. I can't remember what his title is. Let me look it up real quick. What is Saint Job's title from the Old Testament in Eastern Orthodox Church? Because I know that he's not a prophet. The righteous Job, the long-suffering. He is referred to as a prophet, but I don't think he made any prophecies. Huh. Sometimes he's referred to as a prophet. Okay, I was under the impression that he wasn't, but
I think the church's position as to, like, I'm guessing here. I'm not speaking like as if I know anything, but he did receive a vision from God, like with Behemoth, Leviathan, like the intricacies of the world. So maybe that's why he's considered a prophet.
That's fair, yeah.
I believe Job is a prophet in Islam.
So anyways,
yeah,
Bruce,
they
by the way,
know that.
I am curious, Bruce, what, like, because you come from a similar background as me with the Reformed movement, the PSA stuff, does that criticism make sense to you? Like the critique of like Psalms that we covered?
Yes, I mean, yes, but that's it's just a varying degree of interpretation and proof texting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
basically what happens.
Yeah.
So they read in PSA because they have an anthropology of man that's different, substitution is different, and so that's why they have to read that into the Psalms, right? The way they see man is totally corrupt, and so he has to be. Man can do nothing good, and so you need a spotless lamb to take the atonement. And so then they find that in the Psalms.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much you're reading it differently, right? But systematically, that's how they do it. But I mean, you are correct. That's
I
basically
have Father
on.
Stephen DeYoung. It still blows my mind, and I'm sure you agree with this, Bruce. It still blows your mind when you start and you start. Dude, I poured over the scriptures after he mentioned this the first time I heard it. When he says,
The
"You'll never
scapegoat
find
thing?
the scapegoat thing," he's like, "You'll
Yeah, but
never
that's what's
find."
fascinating to me. I need to ask
Yeah, what's up?
some more Protestant scholars to be like, have you guys overlooked this or what? Because I've never heard anyone say that. I've taken it for granted. But
Yeah, the
it seems
scapegoat's never
somewhat
sacrificed.
obvious. It seems somewhat obvious. But Mike, I have to dig a little more because I'm sure I've read this. I think they see that as they're both types. And so it's like they don't divorce the scapegoat from the atonement lamb. And so they put them together. They like mush them together. They mush the sins on the scapegoat and the spotless lamb that's slain.
Yeah, but
They
you
mush
can't.
them
If you
together as
mush it
types.
together, then if Christ represents both, and he is imputed with the sins of the world, right? Again, with double forensic imputation, he no longer can be considered spotless, right? I mean, like that would follow naturally, right?
I would agree. But so yes, I mean,
It's okay.
it's hard to wrap your mind around the distinction because it's so fundamentally different.
Yeah.
But
I
when
have
you
heard
take,
one thing.
oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I have heard one thing that I remember someone telling me at some point. From one pastor said that they, with Job specifically, sorry not to interrupt anything, but I do want to point this out. They think it's allegorical. They don't think Job was a real person. And
I hear that. I've heard
Oh
that, but
yeah,
the
I have heard that.
Reform folks tend to take it literally, and basically what they say is like even Job being righteous was still deserving of death and damnation, and therefore God could do whatever He wanted to Job, because Job's nature is still in sin. Like that's kind of how they see it.
Well, but the problem is that he can't be damned because no one is damned yet, not even the devil.
Well, and it's weird because different Reform folks will say different things with regard to the damnation on the cross. They'll pay lip service to no, we don't say that, but at the same time, like many of them do say that.
Yeah.
But either way, if there's wrath poured out on the Son, you have a Trinitarian problem. And so then they say, well, it's just wrath poured out on the humanity of the Son. Well, now you have an Nestorian problem.
Yeah.
So which one is it?
Well, exactly. And I've pointed this out too. And with the Latinizer goobers, I say, guys, you cannot divorce PSA from its historic understanding.
No.
So when you say PSA, every single Reformed person is going to interpret it exactly how we did. Because the Reformed movement, Calvin and his successors, are the ones that defined PSA. Right? They're the ones that developed it because they had to develop it to contrast it from satisfaction theory from Anselm. So,
and like I always point out to these people is that the liturgy is our guide as far as being Orthodox as far as being Orthodox, right? The liturgy is what teaches us what to believe and what the journey of Christ is like. He didn't undo God and satisfy God's hatred.
Yeah,
that's not. Then he wouldn't be undoing death by death. He defeated death, not God. They act like God had a gun and was like, I'm going to kill all of you, and Jesus jumped in the way,
Yeah, well, they say he kills sin, death, and the devil, right? So they're taking all of those effectively, right? So they're saying like he dealt with sin by atonement, death by defeating death, and bind Satan. So the PSA folks are saying all three of those things are happening on the cross.
Yeah.
Sincere
Hypocrite does have a good point that I think needs to be emphasized, because the scapegoat there is an aspect of the scapegoat in Christ, but it's not the way that they understand it. He says, isn't the scapegoat a type of Christ in that Christ carries our sins to the abyss, but not as a sacrifice? And then Volpez responded and said, yes, but by appropriation. So it's not him literally becoming like the scapegoat where he is
That's right.
sin is imputed on him. So
it's just a type. I mean, that's the way that they just take the symbol of the type and they overemphasize the type.
So I responded to AJ, by the way, and he says, "You guys, it's amazing. You guys complicate the most basic passages. There's no such thing as, again, this is just assuming perspicutive scripture. Like even within the Protestant,
we are complicating it though. This is
even within the Protestant paradigm, right? Like they don't agree with each other on these things. The fact that God would even need to declare someone righteous is evidence of the fact he didn't declare someone righteous. He simply stated what he was. He's not saying this person is righteous and I'm making him righteous. He says, no, this person is righteous and blameless. That's what it says. Read it. You need to think about through what you're saying. And then he continues on and saying, Jesus is clearly saying that nobody's intrinsically good, morally perfect without sin. By the way, where is that defined in the scriptures? If we're only sola scriptura, you have to define that. It doesn't define that way. Except God alone. Morally perfect is not what makes God God. Yes, God is morally perfect, but that's not what makes God God. This includes Mary and John the Baptist and whoever else you want to claim never sinned. Okay, and then I responded to him saying he was righteous and blameless. He did not declare himself. God didn't declare him as in nominalism. And he said he was blameless.
You dare bring up nominalism?
You are wrong because it wasn't God who declared it. God merely said that this man is that. Right? It's an observation. He says, "Have you considered my servant Job, who is blameless and upright?" Right? Imputed righteousness is heresy. We can't be like if God is declaring us righteous, even though we aren't ontologically that.
He's lying. It doesn't make any sense.
Lying. He's literally gaslighting himself, saying, "I know that these people aren't really righteous, but I'm going to pretend as if they are." That's a big problem. And then this guy just does Control F with impute righteousness, and he just comes up with Romans. Romans 4:5, Romans 4:6, Romans 4:7, and Romans 4:8, where it says, "Blessed is the man whom the Lord will not impute sin." Okay, first off, what translation are you using? What's the context of that verse? We're talking about double forensic imputation. We're not talking about just any sort of imputation, the word. And then I just responded saying this is a forensic fiction and a word concept fallacy. Romans 4, God doesn't reckon sins via real union and theosis, and is not crediting alien merit to us. Salvation heals and transforms into the likeness of Christ. Job's blamelessness shows grace is an enabled virtue, not an external crediting. And then he just says, Paul says he does. Where? He said, you say he doesn't. I'm with Paul. Again, your interpretation of Paul. See, this is what the problem is.
Oh, I'm solo Romans. I think we should just read Romans and skip everything else.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what the entire scripture is read in the light of Romans for the average Calvinist, frankly.
Well, it's read in the light of Romans and Ephesians with a predestinarian presupposition.
Yes.
And original sin. So you can see how you could read those that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a reasonable inference if that's your entire paradigm. Yeah, your presuppositions.
Well, and I'll say
that's true.
Sorry.
No, it's true. It's a self-fulfilling sort of read. The point is, like, everyone has to do interpretation on these texts.
Yeah.
The question ultimately comes down to how then can you interpret with authority and make it binding? That's the issue for me.
Yeah, well, and that was the Achilles heel for me as well. I was like, at some point, I just have to accept, that I'm never gonna know scripture as good as these guys.
Well, and I brought this up to Alex one time from Hebrews 13:17, right, where I said it seems like such an obvious kill shot, right, because it says that you have to be basically submit to those appointed over you, for they will answer for your soul, right? If you are misled by them,
Yeah, so 17 says, I have it pulled up here. It says, obey those who rule over you and be submissive, for they watch out for your souls as those who must give an account. Let them do so with joy and not with grief, for that would be unprofitable for you.
So how does that make any sense if they can't bind you to an interpretation?
Yeah. Well,
They
this is
can't,
actually right. This is actually what I said to my elders when I left to pursue Orthodoxy, and it's also my Reformed Baptist pastor years ago. Also, they always preach on authority, like always. Like it's very important for you to be under their authority, and I actually brought that up as one of the reasons why I really agree with you on authority. I agree that it's important, and I want that, but we have to choose our authority. Like we can't escape that epistemic problem.
Yeah,
and so. So I'm taking it seriously, and basically their preaching and teaching over the years brought me to this position with regard to Orthodox authority as the ecclesiastical body who has the ability to bind and loose. They preach that, but they can't actually enforce it.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable thing to say to them, and saying, listen, I respect what you guys have preached over the years, but when at the end of the day, when I look at what you're saying and look at the praxis and the practical application, it's not jiving. And that was the same thing that I also had a major issue with, because I experienced so many church collapses growing up. At least 5 different churches that we attended over time. For one reason or the other, they had splits, or they collapsed, or there was a scandal that caused everybody to like leave, etc., etc. At the end of the day, I was like, I need something where there's accountability, right? Where there is a system of accountability. And so that led me to looking into Anglicanism, Roman Catholicism, and then ultimately Orthodoxy. And my problems with Rome were the same problems I had even as a Protestant. There were still a lot of the same critiques, not so much on the Marian doctrines, not so much on some of those other things, but like the modern innovations of the Roman Catholic Church still bothered me. And then with the Anglicans, I mean, that's just like, you just look at the Anglican Church and go, oh, okay, that's not it.
Oh, no. Yeah.
It's just like lesbian pastor, bishop. Okay, not happening.
Right? Did y'all watch the Redeemed Zoomer versus Doug Wilson debate?
I watched parts of it.
It was interesting, I guess is the word I want to use.
Oh, I didn't see it. So Redeemed Zoomer debated Doug Wilson?
Yeah, and he crushed Doug Wilson, even though he's still wrong, right? But he was like
they were debating. They were debating like schism and whether or not one should be a part of a ecclesiastical
Wait a second,
body.
This is retarded. See, well, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But
no, you can say it.
So, okay, this is
we
retarded.
Love retarded. It's the best retarded. It's the best word.
We even give retards communion because we love them. But
yeah,
this is retarded because both of them are absolutely at odds. Like they're both schismatic. Like they're both insane. So like, think Doug communes infants in his church, but in his denomination, he lets you not do that and also lets you not baptize babies. So like Doug communes infants, which is like the weirdest thing in the world. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah, he does.
The fact that he does that is so out of step. It's from the whole controversy that happened years ago with the new perspectives on Paul and the oh my gosh.
I remember
the Peter Lightheart world.
Yes.
And so they're fighting. They're arguing about schismatic.
Who was another person that was involved in all of that, like the communion and stuff like that?
That was arguing over who's the
Francis
real schismatic.
Chan. Francis Chan, like
Chan was another one.
Yeah.
But he's like kind of like he's like milquetoast as compared to these other guys, right? He's very But that's hilarious. I guess I kind of have to watch that, although I'd probably hate it.
It's worth the watch. It's funny. Because it's
it's two retards fighting.
It's two retards fighting, and I'm going to defend Redeemed Zoomer a little bit here and say, this is questions you need to ask to move on to the things that matter, right? At some point, you have to start asking yourself, wait a minute, schism bad? Yes, but it's almost like when you hear like a revolutionary country that has like gun laws and doesn't let you own a firearm, you're like, wait a minute, guys, I thought you came from like a civilian revolt. And they're like, yeah, I'm like, but you can't own guns, though. Like, yeah, civilians can't be trusted with guns. They'll overthrow the government. It's like,
yeah, but that's how you.
Do you not see the issue here?
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's why I always tell people, like, not everyone makes fun of evangelical non-denominationals. I'm like, but they are the logical conclusion of the Protestant Reformation, which is it is a free for all. We can all just do whatever we want, right? Because that's the rule.
Well, they literally, again, the right of private judgment is held by every single major reformer and Reformation creed That is a kill shot in my
So
opinion.
actually, one thing I'll say about that. So just as an apologetic point, okay?
Yeah, sure.
I've had this debate. I've had this debate with Presbyterians.
Kick him off. I'm kicking.
They will say, no, nobody has the right to interpret things themselves under a tree, right? So it's technically, on the part of the Westminster Standards, they'll say that, right? They'll say, you cannot just interpret the Bible for yourself. You have to interpret it within the context of the church. But if you read their confession, it states that in good and necessary consequence for things that aren't explicitly stated in Scripture, you have to deduce that. And so the question isn't even whether or not they have private judgment, which again, like they do. But the fact is, do they have the authority to tell them what they ought to believe and how they ought to believe it? And what changes that? Like, how do they do that? Because they don't believe in the binding and loosing of sins that way. So what are we talking about here? It's merely propositional ascension to the Westminster.
Yes. Yep, exactly. And I would agree. I would agree with that. I think that that's a little bit more nuanced than what we were saying. But yeah, in essence, that I agree with that. Again, everyone on this channel knows my favorite chapter in the Bible is James 5. I absolutely love James 5. Oh, my favorite verse is Malachi 1:11, but my favorite chapter is James 5, and it's precisely because of this. He's talking to brethren. He says, therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of Christ. See how the farmer waits the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it till it receives the early rain and later rain. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge is standing at the door, my brethren. Take the prophets who spoke the name of the Lord as an example of suffering and patience. Indeed, we count them blessed who endure, who have heard the perseverance of Job and seen the end intended by the Lord, that the Lord is very compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brethren, do not swear either by heaven or by earth, where under either other with any other oath, let be your yes be yes and your no be no, lest you fall into judgment. Now, I want to point out, for people like needgod.net, this completely destroys this doctrine of the elect. Because if someone is a brethren, the presupposition from James here is that these are fellow brethren in the faith. He's referring to them, and he's saying, if any of you do this thing, you will fall into judgment.
Well, and my favorite.
Now, just to add to this real quick, I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, you're great.
To add to this, what the Reformed people often say is like, oh, that just means that they'll have like this temporal judgment, but they're still saved, they're still elect. But then I'll go to the very bottom, and this is why James is so great, because if you just give them that verse, they'll be like, oh, yeah, here's the explanation. I'm like, oh, really? Because later in James, it says this: brethren, if anyone among you wanders from the truth. Well, what does wandering from the truth means? I mean, that must means that they believe in falsity. That means that they don't believe in that which is part of the faith. And someone turns him back. So that defends free will, because we have the ability to turn somebody back. I thought it was only Christ. I thought Christ transformed and regenerated the heart through the Holy Spirit, and that you had no will in this matter, right? And then you continue and say, let him know that he who turns a sinner from the error of his ways will save a soul from death. So when they try and get out of verse 12, you just have to smack them with verse 19 through 20 and say, and cover a multitude of sins. So verse 12 is the trap, because they'll just say, oh, that just means this. But then you'll say, okay, but how do you explain, let him know he who turns a sinner from the error of his ways will save a soul from death? What the hell are you talking about, dude? I thought they were elect. If they're brethren, they're clearly elect. Unless James isn't aware of who is or isn't, and then that's just you're just basically casting aspersions against St. James, right? So notice how they have to it's a constant retreat from.
But they don't like St. James.
Well, no, it's a epistle of straw, don't you know?
Yes. Because it disagrees with me, by the way, not because of any other reason. I don't like that it disagrees with my presuppositions, therefore it's epistle of straw. I'm not sure that's wise. I was gonna say also, my personal favorite. I love Isaiah 43:1, and the reason why. I also want to point this out, that before Christ dies, he says, "I have redeemed you." And it's like my mother was sitting there with my Protestant aunt the other day, and she says, "I'm just confused. Didn't Jesus and God forgive people in the Old Testament before Christ died?
Yes.
So it can't be that simple as he just died to do this, because if that were the case, that
If God
wouldn't
is
make any
incapable,
sense."
yeah, exactly. If God is incapable of forgiving us without the death of Christ, then you have to explain how God is forgiving people throughout the Old Testament. Well, the way that they get around this is they say, "Oh, well, Christ's death is it's retroactive as well in history, and it's future, right?" And there is some truth that Christ's death on the cross is a retroactive and future
Yes.
thing, but they're taking it to uh, an extreme that does not, again, from the sola scripturist position, does not exist in the text. It doesn't exist in the text, so they have to extrapolate that out to where it doesn't follow. And so therefore, if they're allowed to appeal to extra scriptural evidences and inferences, then I'm allowed to go to the church fathers and I'm allowed to go to their inferences on the text. And you have no ability to then dispute my inferences of the text or the church fathers' inferences from the text. And if that's the case, why should I listen to you and your inferences over the church fathers? And they never have an answer for that. So
if you watch that Father Ivanov video with Cleaved Antiquities, that's what he tells the guy, and the guy just says, "Oh, I guess we can just agree to disagree." It's like, what do you mean? You're saying the people who are literally there, who knew the apostles, who knew them personally, and you're telling them what the apostles really meant by what they wrote. Are you serious? The arrogance.
Well, then what they do, and this is what Indiana Brunner and all these other guys are doing now, is they will do the same thing they do with Sola Scriptura, but with the saints. They'll do Sola Patristica. They'll be like, "Oh, let me henpeck the saints to find like random statements they make that could be interpreted and sound like my niche theological paradigm." Right.
Well, and this is the point, like I bring up, I to Calvinists too, is that they always say like, "Oh, but look at this. It says God creates darkness and light and blah, 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 blah." I'm like, God does have a tendency to speak in flowery language, right? In the sense of, like, for instance, at one point he said, it says, "I went to the council of the gods and found no one to give me guidance," right? "For they are less than nothing." Does that mean there's a council of gods he goes to and looks for other gods all the time? Or does that mean he's trying to be awesome and sound super cool when he's talking about something, he's explaining something to you? It doesn't really confuse me, because there's are examples, like, repeatedly, where you're using language that makes you sound awesome, right? I create joy and I create sadness. This is not. It's not a declaration of, like, the specifics of something. And again, this is someone mirroring what God says to him, right? So it's not crazy that my point I'm just trying to make is that they'll want to take that literally, and then everything else is figurative. Except for the times where it's obviously figurative, and they still won't take that figuratively.
So, yeah, well, I 100% agree. Evidence for God responded to my post as well and said, "Is your position that Scripture is wrong and mankind is good by nature, or that these people you speak of being declared righteous were righteous by faith?" Yes, they were righteous by faith. Faithfulness to Christ. Faithfulness is the better way to interpret the Greek and the Hebrew, guys. So never grant them faith. Faithfulness is the better way to
The other
interpret
thing is that's really strange is like this idea that like God somehow is play acting when he says these things, because he like declared them righteous so that they could be righteous, because they couldn't have been righteous otherwise.
I love that one. Yeah,
makes no sense.
I like the one where I like doing it with Pharaoh. I'm like, to point out the absurdity. Pharaoh is such a good one to do. It's like God chose God gave Pharaoh an opportunity to repent and release his people 7 times, but really God didn't really do that. He already made and determined that Pharaoh would refuse him. And so what really God is doing is saying, "I'm just making you an example for my own pleasure. Like I'm just I'm abusing you and the Egyptians for my own pleasure,
for self-gratification,
for self-gratification, to display my glory, right? And it's like, wait, but if God could have just if God could have softened Pharaoh's heart, or if he can harden Pharaoh's heart, why couldn't he just soften Pharaoh's heart and spare all these people, right? So what you're naturally doing, like what they do is when they read these things so literally, they have to make God a monster.
Yes, it will. When the Prince of Egypt cartoon has a better understanding of what that means than you do, you have problems. Okay?
There's some truth to that.
Because even the Prince of Egypt, remember, because you remember the song where he says, he's, you who I call brother, why must you call down another blow? Is this what you wanted? And he says, so let my heart be hardened, and never mind how high the cost may grow. It will still be so. I will never let your people go. God surrenders you to your desires. That's his punishment for you. And people say punishment, but I'm like, that's even that, I would argue, is kind of a reduction of what's happening.
It's anthropomorphizing God's actions towards us. Yeah.
Adam was not kicked out of the garden because God was mad at him. He separated himself from God, and Eve separated themselves from God, right? And they had to leave. If it was an issue of God just wanting to punish them, why would he ever want them back? It doesn't make any sense. So it turns into a thing where it's like, well, God surrenders you to your desires. That's what he gives you as punishment. Like 99%
this is another absurdity. God created the tree knowing that he created Adam and Eve, told them a rule that he knew they wouldn't follow, so that he could get really angry having created Adam and Eve to do the very thing that he knew they would do. Right? Like just follow that train of thought for a while, and you start going, this is absurd. It's literally God is taking a clay figurines and getting mad at the clay figurines for doing exactly what he had LARPed and play acted them, like when you're a kid playing with Legos. It's like you have like Darth Vader Lego kill the other guy, and you're just like, no, how could you, Darth Vader? It's like, I'm so angry at you. And then you like take Darth Vader apart, and it's like, dude, you're the one that like made Darth Vader like kill the other Lego. Right? It's like that's literally what they're doing.
I don't know if you ever heard this before. So whenever you talk to a Reformed person about this sort of thing, they'll say, well, it sounds like you have a very low view of God. And you're making God a creature.
Yes, I've heard that
God
before.
A creature.
They'll say
it's the creator-creature distinction, and you're making God a creature. You're making him think like a man would think.
And I always tell them, I'm like, that is not, you're saying that God is evil. And they're like, no, so if God did it, you wouldn't follow him if God would do that? I said, he wouldn't do that. Doesn't make sense. Like, at what point does the buck stop? He creates humanity, he forces them to eat of the tree, and then blames them for eating the tree, right? How does that make any sense? At what point do we say, wait a minute?
He's upset that they don't
that's pre-fall. So they'll say, like, so pre-fall, Adam had the ability to sin and not sin. So in that case, it was a command, and he could have followed it, but he didn't. Post-fall, right? Now man doesn't have the ability to not sin. That's how they work it out.
Well, that's what they'll say, but the problem with that logic is that they still have to explain how God's sovereign will is manifest in the decision to sin or not sin still. Because they believe in total sovereignty in God, right?
It doesn't matter, because the decree still decreed that Adam would sin. So that they don't get out of that if they say that, because there's still a decree.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's exactly the point. So this is why you just go to one of these Bible verses. You just go to one of these Bible verses and say, God is very angry at people that he decreed would do the thing that he was angry about.
That he wanted them to do.
It's like, you just choose it. Like, he's very angry at the Babylonians. Why? Well, he decreed that the Babylonians would go and do the thing that he's very upset with the Babylonians about. Oh, he's very upset.
Sounds like.
Well, go ahead.
It sounds like something. It sounds like something, like it sounds like Martianism, really, where there is this evil God in the Old Testament, but then there is the good God in the New Testament. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
I've heard that before too.
Yeah,
well, it's the evil God in the pre-fall or post-fall, rather. Sorry, post-fall.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the problem that you'll constantly see with these people. So when evidence for God responds to that, I just said mankind is still made in the image of God and is inherently good still. That makes Calvinist ears bleed when you say that. It's like we're still inherently good.
He said, no one is good. No one does good. Come on, man. What do you mean?
That's what Jesus said. He said, no one's good but the Father. So is Jesus bad?
Well, no one is good but the Father, but all people are good through the Father. Goodness comes from the Father himself. That's what he's emphasizing there. But anyways,
too.
It's so stupid because we're not saying that man doesn't need Christ and doesn't also sin.
No.
Doesn't need to repent. So that's what they think that means.
Yeah, we still go through ancestral sin. We still have to deal with corruption, death, the passions, toil.
90% of the liturgy is Lord have mercy.
Yeah, exactly. God,
it's weird, right?
Go ahead.
Because their assurance bone starts getting angry. Because then they're like, wait, why do you keep asking God for mercy? You already did all of it on the cross. Sounds like you don't actually believe it's done. It's accomplished. That's what they'll do with that.
And what's weird about too,
it goes all back down to God's decree because they believe that certain people are elect and that you don't need to do anything after that. And which is why I always tell them they got really upset. I've upset the evangelical Calvinist Reform people several times in the last week or two. Another thing that they got really upset with me about is that justification post. I said justification does not make sense. It was Lizzie Marbeck I was responding to. And she just she lost her mind because she was like, oh, well, you just believe, we believe in that we're saved, being saved, and will be saved. I'm like, no, you don't. Justification is a one-time event that declares you righteous. You are imputed the righteousness of Christ, and you cannot lose it from your view.
Right.
No.
I actually hear people in the Reform camp, and they've preached it for a long time. Justification is like your ticket is punched. Your ticket's good to go. I don't know if you've heard that before.
I have, yeah. I've heard that saying, that phraseology.
But they also have this other camp in the Reform world that they're very they've argued about. And John Gill, the Baptist guy, really famous expositor, he held to eternal justification. So the idea that you were justified before you were even born. And there are people in the camp that believe that, and some don't. Now, actually, my wife struggled with this for a long time. She's like, well, that doesn't make any sense because he decreed all things. So how are you not justified before foundation of the world? And they'll say, well, justification is a thing that happens in time, but you're also justified in the predestinarian sense, but that's not happened until it happens in time. So justifications is what happens in time.
Their theology of time is actually really jacked up, and I don't think a lot of them sort through that. It's actually kind of interesting that your wife kind of pointed that out because it is a big problem. And that's something that I've actually struggled a lot with God's foreknowledge. And actually, St. John Damascus covers that a little bit, and he does a really excellent job of explaining it. But actually, if you ever want to, if your wife is interested, she should watch Dr. Nathan Jacobs and Father Joseph Lucas talk about God's foreknowledge.
I do want to point out, and because I think about God's foreknowledge a lot, and there's two parts, two sections that hit me and I kind of made sense to me. It's like I like the way I kind of picture it is that if God has the ability to perceive obviously all time at once because he exists outside of time, right? If he has the ability to perceive, but he also sees possible things that could happen that don't. So like when he sends Jonah to basically get the people to turn back, and Jonah gets angry, doesn't want to do it. He ends up going, and he says that the people were saved because of Jonah's actions. When David is in the city, he says, oh, what should I do, God? Should I stay in this city? And God says, no, because if you stay there, Saul is going to catch you. They're going to turn you over to him. He's going to kill you. Well, how does he know that? If he knows if he knows the future, he could have just said, go away. You're not going to stay there anyways. Don't worry about it, dude.
Do you want to hear the answer that Dr. Nathan Jacobs gives, actually?
What?
And St. John Damascus and Father Joseph Lucas in their conversation on it. So they actually say that, and I might be butchering this, so go watch it. Go watch it, okay? It's long, and it's long, and Dr. Nathan Jacobs is long-winded, so he gets to the really juicy stuff like a quarter of the way in, but still, still listen to the whole thing. It's really good because he sets it all up. But he breaks it down how the way that we preserve free will in the Orthodox understanding, like total libertarian free will, and God's sovereign foreknowledge and his ability to know all of the future, is that something doesn't become reality within time and space until an agent does it. And once an agent makes that choice, it becomes what is called an object of knowing, right? It becomes an object in the world once you've made a decision. So I've made the decision to move my my myrrh that I have right here on my hand, I have chosen to move it there. Once I've made that choice, it is an object of knowing that God can perceive and understand, right? Because it's within the created order now. It's been manifested by an agent. But because God is outside of time and space and he transcends it, he sees all objects of knowing that have ever happened and ever will happen, right? So
Yes.
we still have preserved our free will because we're the ones producing the object of knowing. God is interacting with those objects of knowing and interceding as he deems fit, in his most glorious will, right? So he still sees all of the objects of knowing and knows all the things that will happen, but it preserves our free will. I think that is a fascinating. Now, obviously, there are other theories. The Orthodox Church doesn't take a dogmatic approach on God's foreknowledge. Mostly, we leave it up to mystery. But St. John Damascus, Dr. Nathan Jacobson, Father Joseph Lucas, when they're discussing those things about St. John of Damascus, I think that that's about as close as we can get to understanding how God understands and operates within the created order.
It's complicated.
Because God is transcendent, so we're never going to be fully able to understand it. So,
well, it doesn't. I mean, honestly, even the Reform would probably say this, and they just pay lip service to it. I think Orthodox can actually say this, but they'll say like God is sovereign and man is also responsible. Now, I think Orthodox can actually say that according to their theology.
Yeah,
Calvinists just put lip service to that. But if you believe that, so now we're on to beyond that particular sovereignty discussion because we don't know the decree or the will of God in the ultimate sense, other than what He's revealed to us. So now, how do you live? Like, how do you practice? How do you worship? That's the next question, right? No, because both of them will say that. Will say man's responsible, God's sovereign. Both people say the same thing. But what are the implications of that, and how do you live? And does repentance actually have efficacious ability for you to be sanctified, or is it just merely play acting?
Well, it has to be play. I mean, I've never gotten any of them to be able to explain to me how it isn't play acting, like in a way that actually is convincing on any level. And again, I want to just point out that this is extreme, and I know this is hardcore, but from their view, if we take it to the extreme that we're talking about, and Bruce, let me know if you disagree, but there's almost no subject of you. There is no you repenting, right? There is no subject of
right.
you. You are merely a object manifesting a predetermined.
Yeah. Well, they would probably say that so in fact, Reformed people say you actually can't repent until you've been given a new heart and Holy Spirit. So like the way they see it is repentance is only available by the gift of the Holy Spirit working in you. And so it's a part of sanctification. And so you aren't actually doing the repenting per se. You're killing the flesh by way of the Spirit, which actually would be an Orthodox position too. So they just put synergy at the end of sanctification.
So, yeah, you're right. I just want to point this out. Vulpes is saying, say legal again. I don't know what am I saying legal, Ron?
Legal.
Yeah, you kind of legal. It's very you got that very Minnesotan sound.
You got a Minnesota thing going on.
Okay.
Legal.
Here's what I want you to do, Vulpes. Come into chat and fight me.
No, how about you come into chat, Vulpes, and you explain what Walton and Matilda means? How about that?
Yeah, he already tried and he was just like,
he couldn't. It was too hard. Even he didn't understand it.
Listen. I'm from Minnesota. We have a very distinct accent, all right?
Am I saying legal wrong? Yeah.
We have a very distinct accent, but come fight me, Aussie. You guys freaking crazy, man. I have a bunch of Aussie friends.
He needs God.net. Okay, you gave us that.
Yeah, listen, dude. You should not be speaking, considering everyone thinks you speak like needgod.net. That is like throwing
even I don't want to say that
in a glass house. All right, you have no right. All right, Calvinist God sounds like he is dynamically possessing everyone. I mean, kind of.
Yes, that's actually the position, because the thing is that
even the demons are tempting people are doing so out of God's sovereign decree for them to do so.
Right, and then how does he punish the Satan for his wrongdoing if he's just doing what God told him to?
Oh, exactly.
And I kid you not, this is what they say, and everyone here can confirm that. God is glorified in defeating the devil. That's why he has the devil do things. It's
yes, it's about God's glory. For them,
think about how
glorifying
vile
God
that
is the
sounds.
ultimate thing. Like
I let you get murdered because I'm glorified in punishing the murderer. Huh?
Yeah, that's the answer. Well, the reason why they do that is because the problem of evil is difficult for people to swallow. And so like, and my wife and many other people deal with this. So like when people ask me like, why did somebody hurt somebody else? And the answer is like, couldn't God stop that? And the answer is either one, God allows people to have free will, and they'll say that's not sufficient for some people. So then they'll say, well, actually, I don't know the answer, but God is glorified in all that happens in the world. So basically all that happens is for the glory of God, period. That's how they solve it. The problem of evil is for the glory of God.
Well, it's like, because the Catholics have the same problem.
For his own glory is what they would say.
The Catholics do have a similar problem. I wouldn't say they have the same problem, but.
Well, I was going to say they have the same problem when it comes to, this is like an overarching theme of a problem I have, is that because we don't view sin as in a legalistic way, and I imagine it's hard for me to even look back and say, why would I ever want to go back to your legalistic definition of sin? Because like when I first joined the church, that was one of the things that I had to deal with, was understanding that I would be put on penance for killing people in war. I'm like, well, I've killed a lot of people. What are you talking about? You know, I didn't think anything of it at the time. And I got kind of frustrated at the notion that I was guilty of something. I didn't do anything wrong. They were trying to kill me. And then when my priest is like, look, it's not about, you know, you're not, no one's saying that you're a bad person or that you did something wrong. What we're saying is it's bad for your soul that you don't, that, you know, that's
killing
the
an
point.
image
We're trying
bearer,
to heal you.
Yeah, killing an image bearer hurts you just as much as it hurt Cain, right? Like in some sense. Now it's not exactly the same malicious act, but you're not free from the effects of the fall that way.
Yeah. Well, people like there is an aspect of, again, this is why the penitential, the healing, the medicinal aspects of orthodoxy and how we deal with sin is so much more relieving to a lot of people. Like a lot of people find a lot of comfort in that because they realize, it's not this just
you're a bad person.
Yeah, just this legalized way of like, and also like this isn't even getting into it, but I know some of them will have backed off this over the years, but a lot of them would have defended like you have a sin nature. Again, that completely means that God is creating sinful natures, which makes God the creator of evil. Like again,
sin doesn't have an ontology in our perspective.
Sin is a privation, guys. Please, for the love of God, do not let them get away with that. Okay, that is like one of the easiest things you can do is like when somebody is pushing that and just say, do you believe that God creates evil? If they say no, it's like, okay, so he cannot create a sin nature. That means our human nature is still created in the image of God, and God said that was good. It just because it is darkened and marred in the muck of sin and our free will does not mean anything.
It's kind of weird because the way it happened, the way they make it work out is that actually God's not the one giving you the child. It's the fallen, sinful people making the children on their own in their sinful nature. So what they have to say is God's not actually creating that child in the womb. You are, as a sinful man. Then God can then redeem that child if he chooses election for that child. But if he's saying that he doesn't create them, right? Then who's creating them? That's the problem with that. Who's creating the child if that child's nature is sin nature, but God doesn't create sin natures? So who created the child?
Yeah, it's crazy too, because it like I said, it really bothers me because to me, when you read parables, and Father Ron on his channel talks about this a lot, and I really appreciate he brings this up because it's something I bring up a lot, even with Nicholai and everyone here that's ever, that been on a show where I've been on, I bring this up all the time. Parables that are told by Jesus aren't told by accident, and they aren't told in a way to make you think, the language isn't used by accident. It's very specific. So like you think of like the prodigal son. Did the prodigal son return and then Jesus say, and then the father say, well, you're still terrible and awful, but I'll let it go. Or was he just happy his son was back at all? And so when you put it out there, it's like, well, okay, so does God desire all to be united with him? Yes. Then why wouldn't he if he can just take over your mind and use the Holy Spirit to cast magic spells and possess you, why wouldn't he just do that?
Yeah. Yeah,
And it's
that's
like,
a
oh,
big
he
problem. You
wouldn't.
have to. You actually, I've said this before on my channel. Probably 6 or 7 months ago. I said this in I got a little bit of flack for it. I said Calvinism is just the same error of universalism in reverse.
Yes, in reverse.
Universalism is the error of Calvinism, but they take God's sovereign decree as in, oh, God sovereignly decrees that all will be saved, so all will be saved. Whereas Calvinists say God will only decree the elect to be saved. It's the same
because they have no
error.
synergistic nature.
Yeah.
They have
Well,
no
I actually
synergy.
think one of their issues is they overemphasize. I see this pattern. They see themselves still as kind of like the Jews in Babylon, and so they have this sort of like elect idea that the Jews by ethnicity have. And so, like, by their very nature of being a Jew, ethnic Jew, they're saved, right? That's the position of Judaism. They have the same position in the elect. And what they do to take that type and emphasize it even more, they use the Old Testament and sort of say, we are still in Babylon, right? We're still, we're still the remnant. Like that remnant theology.
Fighting the good fight, yeah.
That whole remnant theology and election is all very Judaizing, if you ask me.
Yes.
And you'll hear them sort of talk that way when they do sermons around, like, for instance, lots of people say, how long did it take for the Israelites to disobey God? They'll say like within a day, right? Or within an hour, right? And so they say the same thing about the New Testament. They like deny Pentecost and say that's why they can deny the apostolic fathers, right? Post the apostles. They'll say, well, they went awry from Christ as soon as Christ ascended to heaven and they started doing church, they went awry immediately. And so we can't rely on the apostolic fathers, the early church fathers, the early church, any of his authority, because they could have and probably did go awry.
Yep. Ignore
because
the verses
like
where
the
it
Jews.
says the gates of hell will not prevail against the church, but yeah, ignore that. But yeah, no, you're totally right. I do want to bring up this, and then I gotta close it out for the day. But I want to cover this real quick because it's funny. Andrew Wilson on the channel talking about this. I just want to emphasize this. Everyone knows that I am not the biggest fan of the Jews and Israel. Like, not a big fan of them.
We love Israel.
We do. We love
Stop
guys.
it.
We love
You're
Israel
cutting our
here.
money.
I'm sorry. Hold on. Where's my Israel guys? I don't mean it. Please give me the shekels.
If you feel the buzzing in your head, that means the chip's working.
The
Nicholai.
chip's
That's
working. I'm sorry. We love Israel. We love Israel. Okay. So with that being said, legitimate criticism of Israel is being watered down and completely lost because we have retards like the guys on my screen right now. And I'll share it in the space for you guys to see. Where can I share that? Where do I share it? Oh, it's right here. Share to space. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I know this is kind of a meme. He says, haha, did you see the current thing? Yup, every single time. Definitely the tiny hat tribe. Exactly. With them you lose. Right, because they cry out in pain as they strike you. Dude, so true. 109 times, remember? Haha, shut it down. All right, same time next week? Yeah. The podcast bros, these retards, have done so much harm to legitimate criticism of Israel. Whether you like Charlie Kirk or not, Charlie Kirk was a Zionist and he was a dispensationalist, but he did offer criticisms of Israel, and they were very legitimate, and they actually had a lot of influence in the administration and things like that. It's the same thing with all these people. We were making so much progress with criticizing Israel and Jewish power and having too much foreign influence in the United States, etc., and around the world. Making so much progress, and then we had the literally biggest retards on the planet, like Candace Owens and these weird podcast bros, these MMA guys, these former Navy SEALs, etc., who all are coming out and just guzzling conspiracy slop, and it's made us look like absolute fools.
Yeah.
Oh, Tyler Robinson didn't really kill Charlie Kirk.
Oh my gosh! Please, let me say something about that, guys. Take the W. A psychotic, furry communist was radicalized, which happens all the time, by the way, killed someone. Why are you trying to make out like it was like a Navy SEAL sniper because he like crawled? And I'm like, what? You see this part? He put the weapon on safe,
guys,
Nicholai. Don't you see?
Guys, we have Tactical Ortho Bro here, who was military, and myself, and I was an avid hunter as well growing up in Minnesota, okay? The video that Candace showed that everybody's touting as like proof that Tyler Robinson didn't kill anybody is some of the most retarded analysis I've ever seen in my life. And the video that I posted explains why. There's no such thing as a tactical three-limbed military crawl. That's what everybody does. Everybody does that. If you go grab a stick that is about the same length,
and 140 yards is not long.
No, 140 yards is not long. Go grab a stick and pretend one side is the barrel and the other side is just the the normal weapon. Don't let it hit the ground because you don't want to get dust in the tube. And go and try and crawl into a prone position and crawl maybe like 4 or 5 yards. You're naturally going to move that exact same way. Babies do it, guys. Oh my Lord. I'm sorry. It's just, I'm going to go out of my mind. They literally said that you're going to get a black eye and that your shoulder is going to get jacked up from shooting that rifle. They said, "Oh, that rifle has such recoil, it's going to jack up your shoulder." Listen, if no military rifle,
30-06.
No military rifle is designed to jack up your shoulder. Are you out of your mind? Otherwise, we would have 1 million soldiers who fired one shot and have dislocated shoulders all the time.
The rifle he had was the standard issue rifle of Germany in the Second World War.
Yeah,
every single German soldier had it.
And were they all getting black eyes and like having their shoulders dislocated? No. Timothy, was that happening to the Germans?
Oh my gosh, I see a picture of Ethan Wayne, and he's exactly what I imagined he'd look
like.
No,
yes,
oh my gosh,
don't be shocked. Yes, he's exactly who you think. He's a spiteful little sniveling person. He
blocked me once I confronted him about his communist tendencies, and then got angry. Was like, "Well, what's communist about being feminist?" I'm like, they're not confessing, they're bragging. That's
so somebody says Jim Bob wanted to find alternatives to the government narrative, but the conspiracy theories people were making were so stupid that he almost crashed out. I can imagine. I want to talk to Jim Bob about that. I want him on the channel sometime to talk about that, because I cannot tell you how stupid some of these theories. They're like, there's an exploding mic. Okay, guys, anything that explodes is going to have shrapnel. Were there any other wounds or puncture wounds in Charlie's face or his neck or his chest where the alleged microphone exploded? Oh no, it was like this electric charge like thing that jolted out and like.
Well, which is it? Was there an elite Delta sniper climbing, doing a weird 3-legged crawl on the rooftop?
It was a second. No. See, now they're saying that it was actually, there wasn't the correct angle. So the guy that was up there was just there to, like, I don't know, spy on Charlie, and he was just like signaling to some other dude to shoot Charlie or something. Like the whole thing is layers of complexity, dude. Guys, I as a former government person, please, I'm just begging you. I'm begging you. Holy crap! By the way, I just have to stop real quick. Macaulay Roofing gave $500. Dollars to me. Holy crap, dude! Thank you. Why do the Orthodox churches have saint names? It's to honor the saints in their memory. It's to honor them. It's to recognize their sacrifice and what they've done for the church. The same reason why we have a lot of churches that say the Dormition of the Theotokos, and things of that nature. It's to acknowledge what the church has done and conquered. So, wow, thank you very much. It's much appreciated, Macaulay. Who, by the way, guys, is a good man. You should pay, if you're in Florida, you should patron his business. Orthodox people should be supporting other people like that. But that being said, I do want to emphasize, as a former military person, one, you're not going to see that kind of recoil when you're prone. Even if it's a really heavy-duty weapon, you're like, that kind of rifle is not going to give you any more recoil than your average, like, 12-gauge shotgun.
Yeah, 30-aughts, and like if you're shooting a slug out of 12 gauge, it's way worse. And it's not to say 30-06 isn't like a pretty hard-hitting cartridge.
Yeah,
but,
it's a hard-hitting one.
The thing. For perspective, guys, bear in mind, right, at the muzzle, a 20-inch M16 has the same terminal effect as 30-06 at almost 500 yards. So like this is not. At 140 yards, like
this
it's
is
the
not
same thing
like
with the Trump thing. He aimed for his ear. It's like they'd be saying, how do you make that shot and hit him in the neck? I'm like, I could have hit Charlie Kirk with iron sights at 140.
Yes.
He was sitting still.
But that's standard. By the way, I just want to point this out. It drives me insane. At basic training, that's standard in the Air Force. You shoot at 140 yards with iron sights. That's what you're trained to do. Like 100 to 140 yards, it's nothing.
Yeah, out to 3 in most cases. So I'm not saying it's easy to hit a human being at 300 is actually running around moving. The key part is here, he was standing still.
He was sitting.
This is not a difficult
not a difficult shot.
and what they kind of obsess over is where he hit. And I'm like, look, I don't know how to explain it to people who don't know how guns work, but when you aim, you don't actually hit where you're aiming. I know this sounds crazy, but there are mechanical things in guns. And even if you're a good aim, you can, in fact, I dare say, miss or even hit somewhere you weren't aiming directly. So if I was aiming at, let's say, hypothetically, the God Emperor of Mankind, right? The Donald Trump, right? I'm up there and I'm aiming and I shoot and I hit his ear. I probably wasn't aiming at his ear.
Probably aiming center mass. Probably.
Yeah. Shocking. I know. It's crazy to believe this.
Guys. They're by the way, and with bullet, I just want to point out, it's like a 30-06 should have blown through him. Yes, in a lot of cases it will.
It hit him on the edge of the neck.
The military has had dozens of studies, and we've used that type of ammunition in multiple wars. We know that there is a level of variance that you cannot predict with bullets. You could have a perfectly manufactured bullet, and it still might do something weird that you've never seen a bullet do before. I've seen weirdest things ever. I'll give you an example. This one in specific, though, was designed as it was a hollow point soft tip that is meant to basically bloom.
Dump its energy.
Yeah, it's supposed to let loose its energy and supposed to bloom inside the body in fragmentation. Yeah. Frankly, if Charlie Kirk was hit center mass, he still probably, it wouldn't have gone through him. It probably would have scattered throughout all of his organs. He still probably would have died. It just would have been slower.
Oh, he guaranteed would have died. I don't think it would have been slower. I think if he'd hit him center, he would have just blown up and died. The thing is that he's using a hunting cartridge, right? Which is already scary.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
really scary because it's meant to kill.
That's 30-06 is considered too much for Washington state deer, which, remember, Washington state deer are like 200 pounds on average, right? So and that's big for deer, by the way, for those of you who don't know. 30-06 would, if I brought that out hunting, people like, what the hell's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, that's too much. And the thing is, the example I would give is like in Afghanistan, we had issues where, like, if you ever done a room clearing course, if you ever done any mounts training, anything, you'll hear the saying that bullets glide down walls.
Yeah.
And it's true. Bullets will get shot and then hit a wall and bounce and glide down the wall. Yes. And if you're standing next to the wall or leaning on it, you'll get hit by the bullet traveling down the wall. It's crazy.
Bullets do craziest shit ever, guys. I've seen insane things. Insane.
And even if it was the case, and this is the thing that ultimately is like, just take the W, guys. Why are we trying to be like, no, a furry guy wouldn't be a person to be radicalized? What the hell do you mean? Yeah, he would.
He's a commie furry. He's a communist furry too. He was a Marxist communist furry. Guys, you could not ask for a better person to get radicalized on the internet. And I just want to point out that the people that were like trying to blame the Jews right away in Israel were the commies. It was like Jackson Hinkle and those guys. Why? Because guess who was in their Discord servers? It was Tyler Robinson and his furry boyfriend. Yeah. Furry gay trans boyfriend, whatever the hell you call it.
Maybe Sig was there. Maybe Miko. We don't know. Maybe we don't know. We don't know. We don't know.
But just we're teasing, guys. We're teasing.
Were they homo-romantic or homoerotic? We need the answers.
But the broader point that I'm trying to make with this, guys, is that yes, it's fine to question narratives. But when you do it at the expense of the momentum that the entire country was unified in wanting to destroy the left. Yeah. They wanted to just execute the left. We wanted blood on the streets. It was the first time that conservatives were so pissed that we were demanding court trials and the complete destruction of the left. And we allowed people like Candace Owens, one of the most retarded women on the internet. And that's speaking a lot because there's a lot of retarded women on the internet. We allowed her to completely derail this entire thing, and then we let these podcast bros who LARP as Navy SEALs. I'm sorry, guys. Navy SEAL operators are not ballistics experts.
And I never liked Navy SEALs anyways. Sorry, guys. Sorry, Navy SEAls. I never liked you.
Every single person that was a Navy SEAL for all of 5 seconds, for some reason, has a right to be an expert, and they're the ones that they get appealed to for everything. You know how many Navy SEAls know how Navy SEAL says that the Trump administration is prepping for mass deployment into Iran ground troops. I'm like, are you retarded? Do you know how difficult it would be for the United States military and the Trump administration to hide that level of troop movement? We would have to have the tactical. You knew this. We would have to call up the reserves. National Guards would be called into active duty. There would be rumors circulating everywhere because freaking military wives can't keep their mouths freaking shut.
No.
Everyone would be like, "Oh, my husband was a reservist, and he just got called into active duty. He's going to sent to the Middle East." It's like, you're not supposed to say that, but they always do. Those rumors start circulating everywhere. There would be mass troop deployments. You'd see way more naval ships than we already have over there. You would see the Air Force.
The logistical reality would be insane.
Yeah, it's Iran. This isn't Iraq in 2003, guys. This is Iran. They have 90 million people.
Yeah, I think Iraq is kind of underestimated too, because Iraq we had Ranger Regiment dropped in on airports. It was crazy. Like, the initial invasion of Iraq was very complicated and really a stroke of military like majesty in a lot of ways that no one thought would work that fast, right? Like people don't quite understand this stuff. It's not.
Rafa says we should have a law banning Navy SEAls from writing military books.
So to make sure y'all understand my issue with the Navy SEAls, it's not all Navy SEAls. It's just some. And specifically, DevGru is way cooler than me. And anyone in DevGru can come to my house and beat me up, and all I would do is cry because they're way cooler than me. But being a Navy SEAL does not mean, never forget that James Gallagher was ratted out by Navy SEAls because James Gallagher wanted to go stack bodies. Guys, if James Gallagher flew up to my house right now in a helicopter and said, "You want to go stack bodies?" I'd be like, "Yes," and I'd hop in the helicopter with him. You understand? Yeah. If you are a Navy SEAL and you don't want to stack bodies, you suck. Yeah. What are you doing? What's your job? That's your only job. And here's the thing. So when you have these Navy SEAL guys, if you ever watch the movie like Lone Survivor, it's all malarkey. I can tell you because I know people who were on that op. It was a Marine Corps operation, and the Navy SEALs stole it and ruined it because they didn't want to hike. That's a true story. They didn't want to hike up the mountain, so they said, "Can't we just drop it in helicopters?" And the Marine Corps is like, "No, that's stupid. They'll know you're there." And guess what happened, guys? They knew they were there.
Yeah, it wasn't, guys, believe it or not, and again, this is because the only survivor person, the lone survivor guy, is the one that gets to tell the whole narrative. They're like, really, what gave us away was that we let this...
We spared a child.
We spared a child. We spared this child, and the child told the Taliban, "No, dude, the Taliban... I'm sorry, pardon my French, but they fucking knew you were there because of the helicopters, bro. They're not quiet."
So what they did was, and this is, again, I know people who are on this operation, right? So I have people I served with that were there physically. There's Army LURS guys as well there. And basically what happened was they said, "Hey, look, we're going to come in. We're going to sneak in at night." The Marine Corps plan was to land infill at night, build a hide, and just watch. The Army had the same idea. The Navy SEALs took over the operation and said, "Well, we don't want to hike all the way up there. It'll take too long. I don't want to hike. That's lame. And so can't we just drop it on a helicopter?" So what they decided to do was just fly helicopters in repeatedly. And what their plan was they thought, well, if we do it repeatedly, they'll just forget the helicopters are there. I don't know how they thought this would work. So what happens is when they decide to go in, you have to come out the side of the helicopter. You don't land, right? Because if you landed, then obviously they would know they drop people off, right? And there's trees there, contrary to public belief. So they fast rope. Does anyone know the size of a rope that you use to fast rope? To be very clear,
They're huge.
I've been crushed on a fast rope. When you hit the ground, you have to roll out of the way because the next guy's coming directly behind you and you're going to die. Okay? So you're coming down, you hit the ground, and what do? Do they pull this rope up? They can't. It's impossible.
It's heavy as shit.
So they cut it. They cut it. And the Navy SEALs left the rope out because you can't do anything with it. You can't bury it. So the Taliban found this rope. They found the rope. It's like, yeah, so they knew you dropped in, dumbass. And it's like, it doesn't mean every Navy SEAL in that operation is guilty, right?
No.
But no. My problem
is... The decision makers are.
The Navy SEAls have a history of doing this, where they'll come in, they'll take over an operation, and then do something really stupid, and everyone knew it was a bad idea.
Other
we're like, wait a minute.
you want to know why other special forces don't get nearly the credit they do? Because they're quiet about it. They don't freaking go on every single podcast and brag about how great they are. Like, sorry, I really have little patience for the Navy SEAL guys. But I want to point this out too. Any Navy SEAL that's telling you, "Oh, I know operations super well." You know how many Navy SEALs that are the guys that pull the triggers and go into the whatever operation they're doing are actually involved in the planning of that operation, like in the intricate details? They're almost never involved. At most, they might give their 2 cents of saying, "I don't know if that's possible for us to do," right?
Yeah.
But the people that actually plan it are the planners. It's the intel guys. It's all it's the tech guys. It's all this
officers too.
I've been involved in 16, 17.
You have special forces officers who are involved in the planning.
Yeah. Well, you do, but I'm saying the guys that go in and pull the triggers. And so these guys that are going in and saying, "I was a Navy SEAL operator." It's like, okay, you're an operator. That's not the same thing as the planners. Now, some of them might have been planners, and those guys might have more legitimacy. But the average Navy SEAL that's going on these podcasts is not doing that. And so I have experience in 17 large-scale military exercises and planning, okay, and things of that. I know all of the intricacies that it takes to get all of the logistics done, to get all of these things planned and prepped. I know it's a nightmare. The amount of work that goes into it is insane. And these guys are acting like, "Oh yeah, we just the Trump administration is surging with a bunch of troops in the Middle East. We're going to invade Iran." It's like, are you out of your mind, stupid? This is why we need to stop listening to these guys.
So and I'll say this too, to respond to the question. It says, why didn't they wipe out the Taliban? Well, the first thing you got to understand, sincerely hypocrite, is that the Taliban wasn't really like we think terror organization. It'd be more like seeing them as the Crips or the Bloods. They're not really like, it was more a drug kingpin situation. They weren't really like, so there's no really getting rid of them. There's no really getting rid of them. And the problem is the United States doesn't have the spirit to win wars like that, because what it would mean you'd have to do is start killing people, a lot of people. We don't want to do that
because the average person supports them, guys. They're in all the villages. You'd have to massacre mass amounts of people. We just don't have the
look this up.
Kahunas for it.
You can look this up, and if you ever want to hear a funny story, this is one of my favorite military stories. Is that so? Like when the Navy SEALs and stuff were first going in, what they would do is they'd show up at these compounds and they'd attack them, right? In the middle of the night, which is cool. Now, Afghanis are really primitive. They do understand vehicles. They don't really understand flying vehicles. So they thought, like, one thing they thought was our helicopters had roads built into the skies, and they drove on them, invisible roads. At one point, they were convinced they were fire-breathing dragons. It's not a joke. But what happened was the Taliban started like doing this thing where they would they like fortify the door, and you come in the door, right, and the guy's got like a PKM hiding under a staircase. Like, what are you going to do about that? Well, they would have me throw a charge on the wall, and then you'd blow up the wall, because there's no real way to dig them out otherwise. Okay, so what's funny though is eventually Ranger Regiment and Delta Force, really, and their constituents, decide a new strategy. Because Muslims are dumb, listen, here's what we're going to do. Instead, we're just going to go to their compound. We're going to climb on the wall with a loudspeaker, and we're going to call them pussies. And what they literally would do is climb on the wall, and I remember it because I've been on countless of these, where they would sit with, and they go, "Tojo, tojo, tojo," which means like attention, attention, attention. And they'd be like, "Allah's a pussy. Come and get some, you pussy." In the middle of the night, and these Muslims would run out of the building screaming and angry because you're calling them names. But it's pitch black and they can't see.
And then they just get murked.
And they get smoked. And I remember one time, because our ROE at the time was you're allowed to shoot anyone that's tactically maneuvering and has a gun. So we were sitting there, and like I'm sitting next to the sniper team, because I wouldn't go in unless because I was EOD. So I was more there to support. I didn't get to do all the cool stuff as much. And so I'm sitting there, and the sniper section guy's sitting there, and he goes, hey, Collins, you see that guy? I said, yeah. And I look in, I looked at my scope, and I see him. I'm like, yeah. Guy on the dirt bike? He goes, yeah. I'm like, okay. He goes, can I shoot him? I said, well, I don't know. Is he tactically maneuvering? And sure enough, he was. He was kind of doing because they don't know how well we can see them at night.
Yeah.
So it's pitch black out. So this guy isn't an idiot. He's right. Like, how do you know I'm here? And he's doing this thing where he's like crab walking. And he goes, okay. And there's two of them. And I remember, poof, he shoots. And about a second later, the guy just pops. And then the other guy starts freaking out and just runs. It's what's called a squirter. But the point being with this whole spiel is like, when you got rid of, like, all you had to do is make them come out. And that's what we would do later. At one point we went to a village in Afghanistan and to fight the Taliban, which is and they would just buy the house. We just walk up to a random Afghani dude and be like, "Yo, dude, let me use your house," and give him like $100, and we just start blasting Megadeth on loudspeakers, and the Taliban would show up to fight us. True story.
Yeah,
Because
the Taliban guys, they're just radicals. They're just radical drug dealing warlords who the smart ones take advantage of the inbred population of the Taliban average foot soldier. That's what they are. And so some Nicholai Roofing, who good guy, friend of the channel, interviewing a dude in Afghanistan. One of your son in Taliban, one is in the Afghan National Army, and one is in the police. Yeah, and that's actually another true thing.
We're just trying to make quick bucks. Yeah, what do you want from me?
Like, how did Afghanistan fall so quickly? What do you mean? The Afghan army joined the Taliban the moment that they came through. They're like, "Oh, great, they're here, awesome." They didn't care. They didn't care. There was obviously a few people that were.
I was gonna say, like, I trained with the KSK there, the Catechos guys. The KK, sorry, KSK was the German guys that I worked with. The Catechos, and they were badass. Like, they were cool dudes. They were scary though, because I don't know if y'all know this, but RPGs just have a safety tip. And if you take it off, it can just go off if you hit the top. And they'd run around like Robin Hood with a quiver full of these things, all with the caps off. It terrified me. I didn't like being around it. But what I was just gonna say is the Catechos guys, the Double K Mafia, right? They did fight to the end. They all got beheaded though, because when you tell the guys, "Hey, you're fighting in the mountains. By the way, you have air support," and then Biden literally pulls it out in the middle of the night. They died. Shockingly.
Yeah, well, so there was two types of people. The people that just were like, "Oh, this was a job. I'm just going to join the Taliban now and be on them side." Then there were the people that were like true believers, like, "Oh, we can reform our country. We can make it a better place." And those types got effed hard. And then there were the types that were just like, they're just your usual people that just go with the flow, right? They're just like, "Oh, I guess the Taliban's taking over."
For our homie Volpes, remember the KSK guy or the KK guys, the Catechos. I keep saying the KSK because that's who I spent most of my time with. The Catechos guys were awesome, and they didn't like the ANA's bad PDF problem. They didn't like, and they were savages. They would be like, "What do you mean take him prisoner? I'm just gonna shoot him." They were based just like the Australians are the same way. I don't know if y'all remember the war crime video. This is for Volpes in the chat. Famously, where they chase the guy, and he's like, "What do you want to do with him?" Like, "Shoot the cunt!" Just blast.
Dude, guys. Awesome. By the way, I like anyone who's offended by that language. Just listen. Every single Orthodox Australian and Aussie that I know,
that's how they talk.
They still talk that way even after they've converted. I've known a guy he's been baptized for longer than I have, and they still use the F-bomb and the C word and everything else like it's a punctuation. It's not. They literally mean no offense by it. It is just how
it's a friendly term. It's like saying the N-word to another black person almost.
I'm in a group chat with like 4 or 5 other Aussies or 3 other Aussies, I think. And they're all they're all Orthodox. They're all great dudes, but man, they cuss better than anybody I know. Like, oh my lord.
No, like I said, I always tell people, like, who do I like working with? I said Australians and Germans. Yeah. I'm German, so I enjoyed Germans, but and obviously Serbians and Russians when I had them in my unit and stuff. But like specifically when it comes to working
Russians
with Australians,
are freaking crazy, dude. They're like they're next level crazy, like in a good way, like crazy as in like these guys. You ever see that video of the veteran that came back from the war in the Donbass, and the kids are like, "Oh, how does a grenade work?" He's like, "Want to show you?" And he picks it and he throws it, and it blows up, and you have all these like Russian women with their kids going, just saying "blah blah." Yeah. And he's just sitting there going, well, it's clearly PTSD slightly, but the point is that it was a stun grenade. But it's just funny because that's how they are. They're just like total like.
No, like I've done military contracting with Russians, and they are interesting.
I love them. If an Australian calls you mate, they hate you.
Well, yeah, because it's a nice word. They don't use nice words for people they like.
No, they use swear words for terms of endearment. Yes.
Psalm 22:16. What's the church's position on this? There is a time frame, but it's up to your priest. the goal, and I do want to make this clear because people misunderstand this. I don't feel shame in the sense of like I didn't do anything wrong, and no one I was serving with did anything wrong. We didn't kill innocent people, stuff like that. But it did take me time and healing through the church to really. It wasn't until I don't know if you all remember when Biden left Afghanistan and a bunch of Marines died there, and I remember I cried for the first time about someone dying in my since I got out of the military, and it was because they said, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, and I was like, oh my god, that's a 20-year-old boy, and he's dead.
What's tragic is that if you look at the actual plan that President Trump had for the withdrawal,
it was good.
It was very good. He was
going to use military contractors to keep their Air Force running.
It was going to allow the Taliban and essentially the Taliban and the current government to merge seamlessly. That's what it was.
Trump's plan was good.
It was a good plan.
And it would have had a lot of military contracting jobs for people like me who want to make fat stacks of cash. And nope, they decided not to do that because that would make too much sense.
Yeah, and by the way, this is the one area where military contracting could have done a very, very reasonable transition over to working with I know, shocking as it may be, working with the Taliban and the national Afghani government to transition them over to a stable country. Now, I mean, I'm going to be real with you guys. Afghanistan, as it currently stands, it's just Pakistan. Like, that's all it is. It's basically just Pakistan now. It's a mixed bag. Like, there's things that the Taliban have done that are actually good, believe it or not, like oil and stuff like that. Like, they're actually tapping into some of their natural resources now. But also, the treatment of women has obviously gone to complete shit, which is a tragedy, right? But
yeah, and I trained, so everyone thinks I'm gay for some reason. So I was one of the people who trained the female Terps. What they called like the cultural wellness or whatever group.
Yeah.
And I remember it because they all thought they didn't think they could speak English, or they couldn't because they weren't supposed to be Terps. They're specifically just supposed to be like there to search women. And all the other Marines around me and the other like SF dudes were all like, "Oh, I'd fuck her butt" and stuff like that. And I'm standing there like awkwardly, and then they're leaving. And they say, "Hey, thanks, Sergeant." And I'm like, they do what they were saying the whole time.
Yeah.
But it was very bad because they look like Russian girls. Is what they looked like pretty Russian girls.
Well, that's because of the.
We know why.
We all know why. We all know why. The 90s.
Yeah, and it's
80s
like
and 90s, I should say.
It's a sad situation because like I do feel like those ones I'm sure are dead or worse.
Hopefully,
but
believe it or not, Afghanistan had a lot of people flee into Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. Guys, actually, the only countries that are Muslim that are like even semi-stable are those countries: Turkmenistan,
because
Uzbekistan,
they're run by Russia, basically.
Kyrgyzstan, those countries. Yeah, they're the only ones that are even semi-stable at all.
Well, it's like I was it exactly the American equivalent of calling someone buddy or bud? Yeah, it's like, and I just want to say the last thing about it is, as far as the Psalm 22 questions, like it's up to your priest too. Like you got to think like there are situations where I would need to take penance. I would strongly say, especially in a case of like if we went to war with, let's say we fought Russia. Well, I'm doing what my country commands, and this is where like the quote ortho bros that they call on the internet aren't really ortho bros, but the cringe ones are the ones who are like the other Paul, who I wish I got to bring this up in the show, who went on like an 80-minute tirade screaming at me, basically telling me I was a Zio shill, and I just told him that he looks like he ate a Zio shill, and he cried. Because you served in the military, blah 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 blah. It's like, dude, there is honor in just showing up to do what your country says. Just because you fight for them doesn't mean you agree with everything your country does. And as a country, within the church, that's the position of the church. It's not so like obviously if you went to war with other Christians, especially, that would probably demand larger penances on the service members, right?
Well, that's because orthodoxy and orthopraxy. That's because Central Asia is actually a majority. Culturally, they're not Muslim.
No,
they're religiously Muslim, but culturally
allegedly.
They are not. And actually, they really a lot of those governments, the leadership are secular, and they have advocated for a revival of traditional Central Asian culture. and emphasizing of that, and they've outlawed Wahhabis. So if you're a imam in Central Asia and you go off to like one of the Wahhabi schools, you're not allowed back in the country. They literally ban those people. Like if they find out that you went to a Wahhabist school, they ban you. They don't allow the more radical elements of Islam, and they really emphasize their more traditional roots, which is actually funny enough Mongolian and steep culture, right? So steppe, whatever.
But yeah, it is. I mean, again, like what was that? The tomboy, sorry, who got popular on the internet for being pretty when she did she just was standing there and she was from Kazakhstan or something. Everyone's like, what? I thought that meant she was like, I'm like, yeah, there's Russians there too, dude. Like, what?
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the best tennis players in Kazakhstan is one of the best female tennis players. She's blonde hair, blue eyed, Russian ethnically. Yeah, they
no,
have
I'm not.
So
the gay allegations will continue until my morale improves, dude. It's bad. It's basically just because I was a weirdo who liked to read books too much, apparently. And mainly because I just I didn't freak out whenever a girl was around. Like you ever see like y'all ever watch the Tarzan, where Tarzan first sees a woman? Ooh, that's kind of how I remember I was on this was in the Afghanistan, and they start dropping these barriers, and I'm like, what are they doing to our fob? Like, get out of here! Why are you building a barrier in the middle of it? It's like because they're bringing women in. We're like, huh? And they brought National Guard women there. And it was a big deal because
Army and Marines around women is always a bad idea.
Well, the tradition, more women have been knocked up by Marines and Ranger Regiment than anyone else. It's a fact. And I say that as a fact of like, they literally will not let us, like I was told expressly, if they see me speak to a woman, they will break my arm. Right. It was bad. And I remember it because my buddy was there. And this woman was like looking at him like she wanted to like assault him in a way that isn't appropriate.
Marines are like almost entirely the reason that there are curfews in Korea.
The Navy does that. Do not blame us for that. No,
I can't help it, dude. The Navy is bad, but they're not there 24/7. The Marines are the ones that always have the big stories that blow up in Korea. But actually, it's not even the Marines in Korea. That's more Japan. But the people that are the problem are the Army. The Army is horrible in the Army is absolutely awful when it comes to like getting into fights and causing problems at night. And so they put curfews and they punish, it's always like a team effort thing. So their Air Force always gets punished in Korea whenever the Army gets in trouble. It's like,
yeah, and the
what did we do?
We get punished in Japan. We get punished in Japan for what someone does in Korea. I'm like, what did I do? I knew Japanese. We lost a Marine in town. He was partying or something. He got drunk and couldn't find his way back. And they had to send me out to find him because I speak Japanese. And it was really bad because the people in Okinawa don't speak normal Japanese. So So I was trying to find this guy. And he was trying. It turned out it wasn't his fault. He tripped. He was walking and there was some kind of like hole in the ground that opened up. And he fell into it and broke his leg, and he was just laying in there. It's a crazy story, but like,
did he get in trouble? Because sometimes they'll still be like, it's still your fault.
They tried to, and I fought for him because I was like, no, dude, we had to find him. And they're like, yeah. I said the Japanese aren't mad at him. It's not a big deal. It just happened, And they're like, well, he should have come home earlier then. It's like, that's the Marine Corps position, obviously. But luckily, him getting injured that bad, and I told him, I said, you're lucky the leg broke, because if you hadn't broken, they would have written you up. If he had just gotten hurt, sprained an ankle, they'd be like, yeah, whatever, it's your fault. But he broke his leg, so it's like, what are you going to say to that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was in the Air Force, I remember they lifted the curfew they delayed the curfew to 1 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, that's a bad idea. And they said, why? Because like, what do you think they're going to be doing until 12? It's like when it was 10 o'clock and you're getting off of work at 6, by the time you get dressed, getting into your things at 7, 8 o'clock, and you get to the bar, you have a couple drinks and you go home. You might be a little bit tipsy, right? If you delay it to 1 o'clock curfew, they're going to have like 6 hours of drinking. I'm like, it's better off just to not have the curfew at all. And they would just be like, they just looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, okay, you guys, whatever. And lo and behold, the eventually leadership, they cracked back down on the curfew and they brought it down to 9 o'clock. That was there for like a year or two, and then they finally lifted it fully 2 years later, right when I was
because the
about to get
military
out.
has to react in some way, and this is what people don't in defense of like the stupid military decisions. If you don't react, they act like you're just. I'm like,
The
sometimes bad things
locals are
happen,
pretty
and it's
bad, yeah.
not. Yeah, it's not okay. Something bad happened. Congratulations, you have murders there too. You know what I mean? You have rape there too, and it's not just us doing it. Sorry guys. Now I understand that you shouldn't do that. And again, like that was another reason why I was gay, by the way, was because I don't like going out and drinking, and I really, really hate when people take like attention for granted. So if like it's a really pretty girl talking to me, it annoys me if she thinks I should just be interested in her because she's pretty. So like I can't beat those allegations. The skills allegations will never die.
Yeah, and also, guys, another thing you got to remember, around military installations, all the local gals are either not local and they're like foreign girls from like, especially like Japan and Korea. They're Vietnamese, they're Filipino,
Yeah.
they're Thai,
Yeah.
and they're there to try and get something from a soldier, get knocked up so that they can get those spicy American benefits, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that if they are local and they are native, they're almost very westernized. And so it defeats the purpose of like being interested
Yeah,
in those
finding
cultures.
what.
So I always tell people, like, if you happen to be in those cultures, never ever 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 date any girl that frequents any of the bars around the base or any of the
Yeah.
restaurants around the base. Always go away from the base, like as far away as possible. Someone who doesn't even know that there's a base, preferably at all. Right? Like,
Yeah, and that's
that's the
100%.
reality.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think a lot of people don't understand. I'm like, it's you got to be careful with who you're cooperating with and stuff. And then when it comes specifically to like, oh, oh, it's so easy, bro. Trust me. Like yeah, Japanese women like American men because we're loud. That's like the real reason, by the way, because they think we're like super giga chads because we don't care. Because Japanese people are very reserved
and quiet, yeah.
So to them, they're like, if you're like, hey, your hair looks pretty today, it's like you walked up and just like made out with them in public.
They're like, what? Like, you just said that to me in public? How dare? Like the fact that you compliment somebody in public in front of other people is like crazy to them.
Well, and I do kind of. I mean, this kind of ties back to a theological point too. Is like people don't understand that like there are cultural realities of like, oh, I'm supposed to praise someone else all the time and give them credit for all of my achievements. And that's a cultural thing that is the case in Japan, for instance. And it's also the case in ancient Hebrew culture too, where it literally says, if you do well, you should instantly glorify someone else for it, basically.
Well, in Korea, they do this thing where both sides like insist on like it's a weird ritual where both sides insist on complimenting each other at least like 7 times. It's like,
oh, if you want a gift in Japan, you got to deny it several times.
Oh yeah, same in Korea. Korea, it's like no. Like my daughter even does this. I've noticed, and she, obviously she's growing up in Korea, so she would. But like when my father-in-law tries to give her like $10, like he's like, oh, here's $10 to go spend on, she always goes, no, and then he just forces it in her hand, and then she's like, okay.
Yeah, that's literally what you have to do.
And my there's also a ritual if you go out to eat with somebody. The oldest person typically is the person that takes care of the tab, typically. But there's like a ritual where every other man from every other like part of the family has to also get up and fight over who's gonna pay for it and try and like put their card in the card machine or pay with their cash. And then the my father-in-law always has to like bat your hand down and like bat. It's like,
yeah,
it's like this ritual of like, no, I insist on being the one that does this, right? And it's a very much a it's funny every time I see it because my wife will look at me sometimes when I don't stand up to go and do it. She'll be like, why didn't you go and try and pay?
He's not gonna let me.
Your dad won't let me. And she's like, it doesn't matter. It's the principle. So I'm like, okay, I will. So then I'm like rushing over there, and he'll see me like rushing over there to try and do it. And he's like rapidly trying to take his card out of his wallet and pay before I get there. It's like, and the thing is also what they'll do is like sometimes my father-in-law will like, I have to go to the bathroom, and it's kind of towards the end of the meal. and you realize he's secretly paying, and you're like, you bastard! You have to run after him.
Well, it's performative, C-boy, but it also is. The Bible tells you to do the same thing, right? It says, for instance, if your neighbor has an incident and he has no sheep, you should give him sheep, and you shouldn't brag about it. But your neighbor is obligated to brag on your behalf.
Oh, he's such a good person. He's so great, and then you're just saying, oh no.
No, I'm not that great. It's God. God's great.
There's a level of performativeness to it, yes, but it's what keeps
you humble.
It's what keeps society cohesive.
Yes.
Like that is a small little thing that keeps society cohesive here. You can't let go.
And that's what I always tell people is like, when you talk about like this, that's performative and stuff. It's like, well, that kind of mentality is what makes all these cultural things die off, and then suddenly no one cares about anyone else, and no one listens to anyone else, and no one does anything to help anyone else. And it's like, well, the reality is that that's why in the Bible, where people will be like, look at this part where it says only God is good. I'm like, well, think about it from the perspective of, if you asked me, and I'm sure other people have dealt with this too, and someone says, wow, you have really good manners, and my first says, thank my mom. My mom did a very good job raising me. Right.
I mean, yeah, okay. There's a degree of performativeness in that, right? Where it's like, yeah, in essence, you're the one that's actually being, yeah. So obviously, to a degree, you're the one that's consciously making the decision to behave well. But when you say, no, my parents raised me well, is that performative? On some level, yes. Like, no, it's like it was you. Like, you made the free will decision at the end of the day. But it's about showing deference and honor to those around you. It's the same thing. Like, when I drink, I don't know if it's the same in Japan, but in Korea, when we're pouring drinks, you have to put one hand under your other and you pour it for them, and then there's this whole ritual of the oldest person then pours for you, and then you have to face away and do, like, if you're doing a shot or a beer or drinking, and they say cheers, and you all say cheers. All of the people will turn away their face from the elderly people, the older people on the table, and will drink like that because it's showing deference to them. Now, people are like, well, how does that show deference? It doesn't matter if it's a made-up reason why it shows up deference. The point is that you're showing a degree of respect and deference to the older generation, and that creates culture. That creates a sense of value for those people. It's showing that the older generation are valuable. And that's something that we've lost in the West. We've lost that.
Yeah. And it's sad. And again, like today, and it's partially because our older people suck, right? Because boomers ruined everything. And we have this problem where it's like, well, in Japan, it would be unthinkable to buy a home and not leave it to your kids. But in the United States, for instance, it's common for boomers to sell their family home and buy an RV so they can dick off for no reason.
Well, yeah, and also it's funny you say that, because in Japan it's funny, like the average like young person has like several properties under their name, because there's just they have so few young people to old people, so they're all like inheriting a bunch of properties and they don't know what to do with it. Right? Well, maybe the solution is to have a lot of babies so you can give that to them, but anyways.
It is the solution.
That is the solution. But anyways, Anthony Swampman, what's up, brother?
Yo, what's up?
Just Patrick O'Houlihan.
So, the real question is, you're Swamp Man. Does that mean that you're Dutch?
Oh, yes. No. I just live in Florida.
No,
I was going to say he's either Dutch or from Florida. There's only two options.
Well, actually, you know what's funny? Because my Nicholai Roofing's actually out of Florida. But what's actually funny is that are you on the West Coast or the East Coast?
Oh, I'm in Jackson. Can you hear me? Sorry. I'm in Jacksonville.
Oh, okay. So you're the northern kind of western.
That actually makes sense. Why he's a swamp man? Yeah.
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 My folks are south of Tampa, kind of near Charlotte and Naples and that area.
I have some family that lives out in Beverly Hills, so. Yeah.
That's a growing area. A lot of young people in that area. Tampa's a really like pop-in city for younger people, actually, from my understanding. So.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been down there too much. I think the furthest south I've been, when it comes to recent memory, would be Orlando. So I had to go to Apopka for some job training.
Oh yeah, I've been to Babka before.
Yeah, they have a really beautiful Greek church out there. I went there and visited because they had a service one
They
night.
have
It was nice.
Tampa has a really, or the Tampa area, I should say, has a really lovely Russian cathedral out there. And I think in the area that when I go and visit my family in Florida, my parents, I always there's an Antiochian, a Greek, and a Rokor in my area, and I think I always go to the Antiochian because it's the closest one. So.
Yeah, I mean, we have a ton of churches in Jacksonville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we have like 7 of them. It's crazy.
Which jurisdictions? Pretty much all of them?
So we have 2 under the OCA, one of which I attend. There's one Greek one. There's an Antiochian, a Serbian, a Rokor, a Romanian. And I think that's it.
Actually. Is there any Moscow Patriarchate ones? Because I know that there's still a few of those floating around. There's not very many, but there's still a few floating around.
There's one St. John of Shanghai in San Francisco, and I don't remember if it's ROC or if it's Rokor.
Of all the places that still have a lot of ROC, it's actually Florida. Florida has quite a few because there's still a fairly large Russian population there. So, apparently.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Apparently, there's one. I mean, I'm from New Hampshire, and apparently there's one in Manchester that I had no idea was there because there's like 3 Greek churches in Manchester.
Yeah. Well, what's up, man? Do you have anything you want to comment on? We had a lot of different things we covered today, so I know that you were in and out of chat at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, after covering the whole discussion about Corey Muller, I had to dip and spend some time with my fiance. So
dude, that was next level. No, Corey is.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but I did debate Corey back on Gab, back in the day when I was first coming into the Orthodox Church. I was like, Corey, you're being a little ridiculous, because I wrote an article with permission from my priest. I wrote an article on the incarnation, and for Christmas, and it did really, really well. It did like I think like 5 million reads and like a couple 100,000 shares, etc., etc. It was very, very well received on Gab. It was even promoted by Gab CEO Torba, and after a while, Corey just flipped out on it because he's like, "There's heresy in this." I'm like, well, you're a Lutheran, man. Of course you're going to think that there's things that we don't agree with here, right? And he said, and anyways, he lost his mind, and then he proceeded to we debated a little bit, and he kind of did really badly, because he didn't know what he was talking about. He knew nothing about Orthodoxy at the time, and he, for the following 4 or 5 months after that, he would just go on these rants and raves on Gab, long-winded, because on Gab you don't really have a character limit. He would just go on these article length rants about Orthodoxy and how they're all traitors, they're communists, and blah blah blah. And I'm just like,
communists.
Yeah. He's just he was just throwing whatever he thought could stick on the wall, and no one really took him that seriously. And then when X opened back up to people because Elon bought it, he started that Stone Choir thing, right? The Stone Choir podcast stuff, and he's been just seething ever since. He just hates Orthodoxy, hates it. So
we're just
it's all kind of silly. Yeah. No, it's something I mentioned. Something I mentioned beforehand is that I probably have a longer family history in the U.S. than he does.
Well, my thing is, this is what me and Timothy pointed out is that, dude, you're legitimately, he is going around and he is saying, oh, if you support an external country from America, you're essentially a traitor, right? And we're going to have to get rid of you. It's like, dude, you praise Hitler, who was at war with America at one point. Regardless of whether or not you agree with Hitler's motives or not, or you think that history is lying about him and that he really wasn't that bad of a man, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. Let's just, let's put all of that to the side. He still went to war with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's ridiculous.
Well, again, like
not to mention that like the Orthodox world, especially in America, isn't all Russian. It's a
not even close.
it's a myriad of different
and when people
jurisdictions.
bring up the Russian jurisdiction, right, like they'll always say, "Oh, you don't think the Greek is based because blah blah." I'm like, well, actually, one of the reasons I don't like about the Greeks originally was that they were the ones who refused to evangelize for the longest time and wouldn't speak English in their churches. It was the Antiochians who had to step in and say, "You're not allowed to do that. When you go to a country, you have to learn the local language and do services in the local language so everyone can attend that lives there." And
The
it
ones
was
who've
the
done the best
Antiochian
about that,
church.
yeah, the ones who've done the best about that, besides the OCA, which is just kind of self-evident, the ones that are best about that was Antiochian, Serbian, Rollcore to a lesser degree. They've caught up a lot, in my opinion. They've caught up a lot, but it was the Serbians and the Antiochians that were like, yeah, we need to actually like reach out to the local population. Wow, shocker, right?
Yeah, who would have thought? Well, there was something that Tom Soroka did on his in one
Oh,
of
I didn't know
his
this. Hold on, real
live streams
quick.
on it.
Rafa sent $5 saying the corpsman who died protecting the
Corman.
airport in Kabul was Orthodox Christian. His grandfather attended the parish I was baptized at.
That's
Lord of mercy.
really sad.
Please pray for him, guys. Pray
Wait,
for
wouldn't that mean he
corpsman.
goes to my parish then? Corman. It's Corman. It's a medic, Navy medic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. Corman. Yeah, okay. I thought he said corpsman, like that was his
That's
name.
what it's spelled as, yeah.
No, I thought that's what he said.
Oh,
no, I was
geez,
just
it
reading
was
it wrong.
corpse.
That was my bad. Yeah, man. So Anthony, yeah, like I don't have much patience for the race stuff that Corey's obsessed with. Like, because really, what the reason he's salty about it is because he's got this weird racialism, because he doesn't view Russians as white, by the way.
Well, no, that is a very like that. It's like when people are like, what was the biggest mistake of like World War II? I'm always like, look, dude, the two biggest mistakes can be summed up as this: the Japanese and the Germans both had positioned themselves as the liberators of XYZ, and they messed up by mistreating the groups of peoples that they were liberating. Japan was well positioned to be the liberator of Asia. But instead, they're like, hey, guys, we're going to literally treat you all like garbage. Why?
Yeah, and just fight a constant war in Manchuria. Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't you want to push this notion of like, hey, well, we're all Asian and we should be better to each other and we should be nice to the Chinese and blah, 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 and the Koreans. And when they took over Korea, Korea was already under so much control of the Chinese that they could have positioned themselves and said, hey, we're protecting your sovereignty. But instead, they're like, no, we're going to oppress you and use your women in terrible ways and do all this awful stuff. It's like, why did you do that? And you see the same thing in Eastern Europe. It's not to say like Eastern Europe was the Soviet Union was worse. And how do we know that? Because the people in those countries said so, right? They said, I would rather have the Germans back. That's why if you go to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, there's still swastikas everywhere. It's very jarring if you've ever been to the other places. Because any place.
You did have the Legionnaire movement in Romania as well.
Yes,
it was actually
the Iron the Iron guys, yeah.
Yeah. I would actually say that was probably a better posed kind of nationalist position when compared to various other.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, here's the thing about all that. They failed. At the end of the day, they failed.
Well, my point I'm trying to make is that Corey Mahler taking the side that Slavics are subhuman is actually the Nazi German position, because that era of racial science is bizarre and crazy, where like they were convinced that like Slavic people weren't actually white or European, right? They thought Indians might be, which is like the biggest L ever. Stuff like that.
There's all sorts of weirdness that they took.
The 40s was an odd place.
They had it was completely arbitrary. Most of it was meant to justify certain political positions that they had towards certain countries. Like, oh, why are we friends with these guys but not these guys? Well, these guys are more white than others. Well, why is that the case? Well, they just are. But look at the skull. We look at the wispy beards. That means they must be related to the Mongolians, so they're not really white or something like that. It's like, what? Just like completely arbitrary. But like racial science is just like one of I've been meaning to do a stream on this because it is one of the dumbest.
Yeah. I wanted to do one with you for a while.
Yeah, it is one of the dumbest things and we'll do one at some point, and I'll actually have some notes and things like that, and we'll go over like a PowerPoint on it, because it is one of the dumbest things that I've ever seen, and people that get like super hung up about it, clearly do not know the history of the world. Because the history of the world is armies going to other regions that are not ethnically theirs and killing all the men and then marrying all the women.
Yeah.
Like, that is the history of the world. What do you think What do you think Alexander the Great and his armies were doing in Persia and in India? You think he was just like passing through, defeating all those guys, and then in the local village girl that was cute, and they have a bunch of 18-year-old men that haven't seen a woman in like 3 years? Well, what do you think? What do you think they were doing? They're like, oh, pretty woman in India, or pretty woman in Persia. Yeah, you're mine now, right? Like, that's what they did. That's the history of the world. That's what the British Empire. What do you think those British merchant fleets were doing when they went in Indonesia? Do you think they were pit stopping there for a day? No, they would be there for like 6 months. And then
Yeah.
they would like stock up on stuff. They'd make trades. They'd make deals. They would make sure everything was prepped. What do you think those young sailormen? Because there's mostly young sailors, except for some of the veterans. These young men who joined to see the world, because that's how you saw the world back then. What do you think they were doing?
Well, and again, like, I'll
same
be
kind
the
of
first.
story with like the Spanish and the Aztecs and Mayans.
I
Yeah,
mean, it might have been
exactly.
worse with them, dude. All they did was like, damn.
Dude, that's like the
That's
Spanish,
all they
man.
did, dude.
Dude, the Spanish, they're just like, my love, I have 3 other wives in 3 other countries. I must go. Be Catholic. Bye.
Be Catholic, and they're like, well, how are you going to convince me to do that? They're like, oh, we'll just say your pagan gods are actually Mary in disguise. I'm like, I see.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
And that's why there's always the meme where it's like, if you actually read like Hernan Cortez's diaries and stuff, it's very interesting because he's like going through Mexico. He's like, these hoes are hot. What the hell? And he's freaking out about it.
Unironically, they say that a lot. Actually, read the diaries of Marco Polo, and he has nothing but good things to say about the women of China in the Orient. Like, he's just like, oh wow,
he's got yellow fever.
Yeah,
I get it. I understand.
But and the Mongols, like, what did the Mongols do? Like, every society and every culture on the planet, the Mongols conquer a country, and then they would just proceed to just like Kublai Khan and Genghis would like take like 10 wives. It's like, yeah, we conquered these people. Here's all the prettiest ones. They're all my wives now. It's like all concubines. And it's like, that's what they did. That's what people did back then. And so this idea of this like racial puritanical nonsense makes no sense. What do you think the Saxons did to the Celts and the Picts?
I do understand to some extent where their concern is like the idea of like, for instance, like you get people who are wealthy or who are moderately wealthy who are basically going on like marriage trips and going to like the Philippines and just marrying Filipino women. And it is sad even for the Filipino women sometimes because they'll be like, oh, I don't actually want to have kids, and I'm going to get this Filipino woman to marry me because she's more submissive or whatever the case may be. Which at the same time, that's also, you know, the problem of the women in your host country, because if they are not able to fulfill the needs of being a wife, well, I mean, you're gonna have to go somewhere else to find one. You know what I mean? So it gets more complicated than that. In fairness,
it is, but I'm being reductive to point out the their extreme position is an absurdity. Well, it doesn't exist.
And
right?
Any of you who ever went to college for history would know this, right? Where I was in college at the time, and I was like, oh, and they said, you know, the Crusaders, when they took Antioch, they didn't really kill anybody. But when they took Jerusalem, they killed all these Christians. I said, that's not true. They didn't kill Christians in Jerusalem. Jerusalem, all the Christians had been killed by the Muslims before the siege. And that's why they killed everybody. Right. And I kid you not, my teacher told me it was because they were brown. And I looked at her and I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. They had no understanding or thought of that at that time. What you think of today, like, it's a brown person. A medieval European would be like, is it Christian though?
They didn't.
That's all they cared about.
Well, also the Middle East at that time, they
Greek.
looked a lot like the Alawite or Assad.
The Greeks.
They were Greek. They were overwhelmingly Greek. They were mixed with Greeks for centuries at that point. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like the idea, like even this, like everything from Egypt, like parts of Egypt, I should say, all the way up through Turkey into Greece. They were Hellenized. The Greeks were marrying all those people. Okay. And then the Arabs came in and intermixed with those. So what we see today is a byproduct of Greek, Arab, and other conquered peoples over that time period, right? It's like it's that simple. And people just like, oh gosh, it's so annoying.
Well, and again, it's like the notion. It's like, I understand you saying, hey, as a rule, you should be careful about marrying people from other cultures. That's fine, right? That's, as a rule, you should. But if you love a woman and she's Korean, you love a woman and she's Japanese, who cares? That's fine. Marry them then, and have kids with them, and give them kids, and be a good husband, and be into church. It's just like if I said, you should only marry an Orthodox woman, and you're like, well, I can't find one. I'm like, well, then you got to marry someone else, right?
Well, you gotta flirt to convert. Sorry to tell you.
There's no women in the church. We have the yogurt plants plan that I've already presented my priest. We're working on it now, but it doesn't. I like the hot topic plan. The hot topic plan, we have the shoot where they go to the changing rooms at Hot Topic and it sucks them into an Orthodox church when they're not paying attention. That's my current plan. But my point is like, people who obsess over it, there's a difference between you understanding and being appreciative of like your own people and loving your culture and your history, and turning it into an idol equal to God. Because, it doesn't matter if they're Christian. I'm like, well, this is the difference between me and them. I don't grant you that Tyler Perry is a Christian. I don't think he's Christian. I don't think those black churches are actually Christians. Right? The Mime Church is not a real church. Cholo Church is. But Mime Church is not.
Yes.
Right? So when they get all hoity-toity about it and go like, but like you don't like white people who are atheists, but you like black people who are Christians, so you like Tyler Perry. It's like, no, I don't though. You better be Orthodox or I don't care. Yeah. And if you're black and Orthodox, that's fine. Because I hate to tell you another fun fact of the day for all the stupid people who don't know anything about history. Christian race was a common term. Charlemagne wrote it repeatedly. The Christian race, the Christian race, the Christian race, the Christian race.
It's even in our prayers.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Christian race. Yeah.
Well, just to really emphasize this real quick is that I'm not saying you shouldn't value your culture and your ethnicity that you grow up in and things like that. If that's something that's really important to you, okay, good. Then go convert some, nice British gal or nice Swedish gal, et cetera, and have a lot of babies and preserve your race. But you want to know why these races are dying? It's because they're not having babies. It's that simple.
Yeah.
They're not dying. Like, even if you were to import like 25 million Muslims into Sweden, the Swedish people would not disappear. What would happen is that, because even in countries like America, which are very, very like not homogenous, right? Not anymore. 90%, I think it's 90 to 95, 90 to 95% of people marry within their own cultural group. Yeah. So the Swedish people aren't going to disappear. They're just going to become a minority. And if they refuse to have babies, they'll cease to exist. That's their fault.
Well, remember, South Africa was majority white. And Britain brought in the blacks. The blacks didn't live there.
Yeah, it was the Zulu stuff. Yeah, there was
very few Zulus. There's very few. That's a true story. The Zulu kingdom still exists and actually agrees with the white South Africans. Fun fact of the day. Yeah. The king of the Zulus said that the black South Africans are making it a shithole. But what I'm saying is that the Dutch were farmers and they didn't want any, and Africans didn't live there because the land was too rough. Whenever the British took over, they wanted to open gold mines. And so they wanted slaves to work the gold mines. So they imported Africans by force, literally fought a war called the Boer Wars over this. So what I'm trying to say, like, it can happen that you become a minority against your will, right? But the flip side of that is just like with America, demographic collapse is a net positive because we want people to start having kids again. And that can only happen once there aren't enough people to work jobs and the wages go up. How many times have you guys seen on the news where they're like, oh, the Republicans are trying to protect the housing prices? Why do you want the housing prices to be 500% inflated, you idiot? I don't want that. Make them go back to where they belong. No, we can't do that. Why not? Oh, because then everyone could buy a house. Oh, I see. Right.
Well, it seems the big thing with the housing crisis has more to do with these large private equity companies buying out property just en masse. and turning it into whatever.
Oh yeah,
Rentals.
100%. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, that can be fixed too. Like it's just like I always joke when people call it the horseshoe theory. I hate horseshoe theory. I hate it. It's not true. It's dumb. And here's why it's dumb. If you listen to like a bass song, because we're all communists, we have to be because we're Orthodox, right? Those are the rules. If you listen to something like the Red Army is the strongest, or the Russian Army is the strongest, as it's called now, right? There's a part where it says we're starting a world fire, and every bank and prison will burn to the ground. You see, them acknowledging that banks are bad and that prisons are also bad doesn't change the fact that they want to let the bankers and the prisoners out first, and I don't. Right? So I'm like, you see, we both agree that banks and prisons need to go, but I don't want the prisoners to be around anymore either, you see. I don't want the banks to be around there anymore either. So we just see it the same problem, but we don't have the same solutions. Just because two people on each side of the aisle can see, yeah, this is a problem, doesn't mean that we agree on anything. We just agree that there's a problem. Congratulations. So it's like, no, you know, that's why it's like in America, we just import more people. Well, it's not a good thing.
No, because
And here's
it's
something I'll point out too.
keeping the numbers. It's keeping the numbers and everything else in this artificial. It's keeping it artificial. And so what ends up happening is that what normally would happen, where there's a lull in the birth rates, is that prices would start
Wages
coming
go up,
down,
prices go down,
and young people would be able to afford stuff again, and then they'd have families again. Now, obviously, there's cultural dynamics and everything else, but what we've done is we've imported en masse all these people into the country. This is why deportations are so important. The fact that we had net negative migration last year is like a miracle. That needs to continue. We need to do that for the next 20 years in order for young people to have the confidence in the economy again. And this is true for many countries. Korea, it's happening. Actually, the thing is what's happening in Korea right now is what should happen in America. They're actually having economic issues where they're like, oh, things have to be cheaper because people can't afford it, blah blah, and jobs are becoming a problem. We can't fill them. And their solution has been like, oh, we'll use seasonal workers, which is better than permanent workers. But they're like, we'll use seasonal workers. But now they're starting to realize it's like, actually, we just need to get young people to have babies. And so that's what they've been doing. And we've actually seen an uptick in the birth rates the last 2 quarters. Net births have increased in Korea, and it's continuing to increase, and hopefully it will continue to do so. But that means that the economy is going to take a hit, right? In certain areas, certain sectors. So,
well, again, like look what happened here. Oh, these banks are collapsing. We need to bail them all out. No, fuck them. Let them burn. Why are we bailing you out? Like, oh, but who would take all their debt? No one, because they don't exist.
The debt doesn't exist. Just let it disappear.
Yeah, but no, we can't do that because that would make like I think it was this is again Ron Paul era. I remember Ron Paul saying one time where he said like the amount they spend on the banking stuff. He said if we, instead of bailing out the banks, we had paid off every loan in the country, we still would have spent less than half the amount we spent on this. And he's like, so if we just have to spend the money, why can't we help actual Americans with it? Like, okay, if we just have to spend the money, then we'll just buy all these loans out and be done with it and let people restart their lives. Oh, we can't do that. Why not? Oh, because the banks need to exist. Again, just because the horseshoe on both sides sees the banks as bad does not mean that we agree.
Well, and also the question is not is having a bank bad? No, the question is do we have the regulations in place to make sure these banks do not get too big? Because really, a bank was always meant to be a local institution where you go to get a loan for your small business. It was never meant to be this thing that everybody in the country has a Chase card. Like that doesn't make any sense. This entire credit system is nonsense. Anyways, we could do this all day. I got to get going. It was nice talking to you.
Well, are you going to be on tomorrow? Are you going to forget again? Are you going to forget again?
I did not forget. I forgot to tell you guys, but I was out of town.
He forgot something. He forgot.
Yeah. Chat. No, we should be good. I don't know why the other guys are not answering my freaking messages. They want to do it. And they keep on telling me, yeah, we got to do that. And I'm like, okay, well, let us know if we're going to merge our stuff.
Trust me. Let's just keep. I've been working. We got stuff to do.
Yeah, we'll keep on doing what we're going to do. But yeah, so we do expect to have the next session up, guys, for the TTRPG. So if you're interested in TTRPGs, we should be doing one tomorrow. What's it, tomorrow? Saturday morning. So yeah, tomorrow for me. I don't know what time it is for you guys. So expect that.
So it'd be like 2000 Pacific Standard Time, or like 19
Yeah,
or like 1900 Pacific Standard Time.
I might let you. Well, shoot, what time? Might have to delay it a little bit because I think I have a meeting with my dad in the morning.
That's fine.
But we'll just delay it by like an hour.
That's how he talks to his dad, by the way. He doesn't even have like normal conversations. He's a meeting with him. He has to sit there and.
No, it's for their business, so it's like actual like a formal meeting because they're opening up a restaurant in Florida.
I'm teasing.
But anyways, that being said, yes, my father. We have a meeting, father. Anyways, guys. Yeah, no 40K talk. Smack talking. We're gonna be doing is Warhammer Fantasy.
We haven't. We do not have time to talk about Warhammer 40K
Hold
now.
on, is Jim Bob live? Don't go anywhere, guys. I'm gonna raid him if that's the case.
He might be live. I think I saw him.
Let me see
live.
if he's live. I'm raiding him.
I want him to come on this show as Pastor Mike. I promote Pastor Mike pretty regularly.
That would be hilarious.
So, dude, I would pay such good money to see Pastor Mike.
YouTube.
I want to see like Pastor Mike debate Berean perspective and stay in character the whole time during the debate. That's what I want.
Oh gosh, it would be hard though. It's hard. Like
I don't know. I feel like Protestants are so easy to like mimic because they make the same shitty arguments.
There's truth to that. Yes.
Don't cut us off like Jada.
Redirect. Okay, I found it. Hold on. Made by Jim Bob. Forrest Valvic Blunders debate. Yes.
Raid.
I think it's something about evolution by the looks of it.
Awesome. Well, we'll go. I'll send you guys all over there. I'm going to end the stream right now. God bless you guys. I'm going to end this X space too.
All right.
God bless you guys. Thank you for coming in. And we will talk to you again real soon. Thank you for everyone who super chatted. Just to reiterate who did. And I did read all of them. Rafa, Macaulay, Joshua, Monarchia, and Quantum. Thank you guys so much. And to all the people who sent gifts, the little jewels thingies, mabobbers. Those are all appreciated as well. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful